The night Ryan Cole chose to stop his car, he had no idea he was about to save 2 lives, including his own. Behind a frozen bakery dumpster on Christmas Eve, a woman in a broken wheelchair fought for dignity the world had stolen. One father, running late. One mother, left behind. A single moment of recognition that would shatter everything they thought they knew about survival, sacrifice, and what it truly means to fight for the people you love. Stay until the end to see how one choice changed everything. Hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far this story reaches. The brake pedal hit the floor with a violence that made the old Civic shudder. Ryan Cole's hands gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles went white against the cracked leather. His breath clouded in the freezing air. The heater had given out 2 miles back, just past the expressway exit, and now the windshield was starting to fog from the inside. He could barely see through it, but he'd seen enough. Behind the bakery dumpster, in the sodium yellow spill of the parking lot light, someone was moving. Damn it! The word escaped through clenched teeth. His phone screen glowed on the passenger seat. 8:47 p.m. 13 missed calls. All from the same number. All from home. His son. Alone. Waiting. Ryan's foot hovered over the gas pedal. The logical part of his brain, the part that had kept him employed, kept him functional, kept him upright through 3 years of grinding survival since Sarah died, was already building the case for driving on. It's Christmas Eve. The streets are empty. Whatever's happening back there isn't your problem. Tyler's been alone for 40 minutes already. Every second counts. But his car sat there, engine idling rough, exhaust pipe coughing white smoke into the December cold, because the person behind the dumpster was in a wheelchair, and the wheelchair was broken. Ryan killed the engine. The sudden silence felt like accusation. Through the windshield, he watched the figure lean dangerously far to one side, reaching into the dumpster with both arms. The wheelchair, he could see now it was missing a wheel entirely, tilted at a sickening angle. One wrong move and the whole thing would dump its occupant into the snow-crusted asphalt. "This is stupid," he muttered. But he was already opening the door. The cold hit him like a physical blow, stealing his breath. 18 degrees, the radio had said. Feels like 6 with the wind chill. He'd worn his work jacket, not nearly warm enough, and his hands were already going numb. The bakery had been closed for hours. The windows were dark. A cardboard sign dangled from the door handle. "Merry Christmas, see you." December 26th. Someone had decorated the brick facade with string lights that weren't turned on. Ryan's boots crunched across the parking lot. Each step felt heavier than the last. He didn't want to be here. Didn't want to see this. Didn't want to know whatever story was about to unfold. He'd spent 3 years perfecting the art of not seeing, not knowing, not feeling anything beyond what was absolutely necessary to get Tyler fed and himself to work, and both of them through another day without falling apart. And now here he was, walking towards someone else's catastrophe. "Hey!" His voice came out rougher than he intended. "Hey, you okay?" The figure in the wheelchair went completely still. Ryan stopped about 10 feet away, suddenly aware of how this looked. Big guy. Dark parking lot. Vulnerable person. He raised both hands, palms out. I just saw you from the road. That chair looks like it's about to tip." Slowly, the person turned. It was a woman. Younger than he'd expected, maybe 30, 35. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail that had mostly come undone. Her face was sharp with cold and something harder than cold. She wore a thin canvas jacket over a hoodie, both soaked through at the shoulders. Her jeans were wet from the knees down. Her hands were inside the dumpster. For a long moment, they just stared at each other. Ryan could see his breath, could see hers. The broken wheelchair creaked as she shifted her weight. Then she spoke, and her voice cut through the cold like a blade. "I'm not stealing." 4 words, flat, fierce, final. Ryan felt something crack open inside his chest, some carefully maintained wall he'd been shoring up for 3 years, because he recognized that tone. It was the same way he'd sounded the week after Sarah's funeral, when his mother-in-law had suggested Tyler might be better off living with her for a while. Not angry, not defensive, just done. Done explaining, done justifying, Done proving his worth to people who'd already made up their minds. "I didn't think you were," he said quietly. "Yes, you did." She pulled her hands out of the dumpster. They were empty, shaking. "Everyone does. Woman in a broken chair digging through trash on Christmas Eve, must be homeless, must be an addict, must be looking for something to steal or sell. I just thought you might need help." "Why?" The word was sharp. "Because I'm in a wheelchair? Because I'm here? Because you think I can't take care of myself?" Ryan opened his mouth, closed it, tried again. "Because that chair's about to dump you on your head, and it's 18 degrees out here, and I'm pretty sure your hands are going numb." The woman's jaw tightened. For a second, he thought she was going to tell him to leave. Then her shoulders sagged, just slightly. Just enough. "It broke this morning," she said. Her voice had lost some of its edge. "The front left wheel. Just came off. I tried to fix it, but I don't have the right tools, and the repair shop wants $200 I don't have, and I can't get to my daughter's foster home without it because the bus doesn't run on Christmas Eve, and she made me something at her art class, and they said she could give it to me tonight if I came by, but then the caseworker called and said I couldn't come after all because it's inappropriate to show up without 24 hours notice, even though I've been calling for 3 days, and..." She stopped, pressed her lips together. When she spoke again, her voice was steady, careful. "There's a drawing in there. My daughter made it for me. The caseworker threw it away because I violated protocol by asking to see it during our last visit. I watched her throw it in the kitchen trash. I know it's here. I'm getting it back." Ryan looked at the dumpster. It was one of those big commercial ones, green metal, lid propped open. Even from here, he could smell it. Yeast and sugar gone sour, coffee grounds, rotting produce. "What's your name?" he asked. She studied him, weighing something. "Marisol." "Ryan." He moved closer, slowly. "Marisol, I'm going to help you find that drawing, but first we need to get you stable before that chair dumps you." "I know you don't need me." He crouched down, making himself smaller, less threatening. "But I'm offering anyway. Is that okay?" Another long pause. Then, barely audible, "Okay." Ryan moved around to the back of the wheelchair. Up close, he could see how badly damaged it was. The front left wheel mount had sheared clean off. Someone had tried to rig a temporary fix with duct tape and what looked like part of a broomstick. It hadn't held. "I'm going to stabilize this so you can reach in safely," he said. "Just tell me if anything hurts or feels wrong." Marisol nodded, not looking at him. Ryan braced the chair with his body weight, one hand on each handle. "Okay, you're steady." She leaned forward again, both arms disappearing into the dumpster. Her breathing was harsh, determined. Ryan could feel her shifting her weight, could feel the chair wanting to tip, could feel his lower back starting to protest the angle. "It's not in the first bag," she muttered. "They must have dumped more stuff on top." "Take your time." "My daughter's name is Sophia." Marisol's voice floated up from inside the dumpster. "She's 6. She has my eyes and her father's smile. Except I haven't seen him since I told him I was pregnant. So maybe it's not his smile, maybe it's just hers. She loves purple. Wants to be a veterinarian, draws me pictures of dogs and cats and horses she's never seen except in books." Ryan's arms were starting to shake. "That's a good dream." "They took her from me 8 months ago." Marisol pulled herself up for a moment, gasping. Her face was flushed despite the cold. "The accident happened 2 years before that. Car ran a red light. I was crossing the street after my shift at the rehab clinic. Woke up in the hospital, paralyzed from the waist down. The driver had no insurance. I had no savings. Everything fell apart so fast." She went back down into the dumpster. Ryan didn't know what to say. His phone was buzzing in his pocket. Tyler. He was supposed to be home an hour ago. They were supposed to order pizza and watch that Christmas movie Tyler had been talking about all week. Their tradition. The only one they had left since Sarah died. But he didn't move. "Lost my job," Marisol continued. Her voice was muffled now. "Lost my apartment. Lost my car. Ended up in a shelter. They said it wasn't appropriate housing for a child. Said I couldn't provide. Said Sophia would be better off in foster care temporarily while I got back on my feet. That was 8 months ago. 8 months of supervised visits and case reviews and proving I'm not worthless just because my legs don't work. You're not worthless. Tell that to the judge. Something crinkled. Wait, I think... She pulled herself up, and in her hands was a crumpled piece of paper. Even in the bad light, Ryan could see the crayon marks. Bright purple. A stick figure with a big smile. Marisol's hands were shaking so hard she could barely hold it. It says, "I love you, Mama," she whispered. She spelled love wrong. Put the V before the O. But she tried so hard to make the letters neat. Ryan felt his throat tighten. He thought about Tyler's artwork covering their refrigerator. Every crayon scribble, every lopsided drawing, every "I love Dad" written in big, uneven letters. He'd saved them all, had them in a box in his closet because he couldn't bear to throw any away. "Can I see?" he asked softly. Marisol handed it to him. The paper was stained with what looked like coffee grounds, torn at one corner, but the drawing was clear. A stick figure girl holding hands with a stick figure woman. Both of them were smiling. The woman was in a wheelchair. Purple hearts floated around them. "I love you, Mama. Love, Sophia." The V was definitely before the O. Ryan handed it back carefully. "She's got talent. She's got heart." Marisol folded the paper with painstaking care, tucked it inside her jacket. "The caseworker said I was making a scene when I asked to see it. Said I was boundary crossing by asking Sophia about her artwork. They schedule our visits for 30 minutes, once a week, in a room with cameras and a social worker watching every second. I can't hug her too long, can't cry in front of her, can't talk about when she's coming home because that's creating false expectations. And when I asked to see a drawing my daughter made for me, they said I was being inappropriate." She looked up at Ryan, and her eyes were dry but blazing. "So yes, I was digging through trash because that's what they've made me. Someone who has to fight through garbage to hold on to proof that my daughter loves me." Ryan's phone buzzed again. He pulled it out. A text from Tyler. "Dad, where are you? You said 8:30. I'm scared." His stomach dropped. "I have to go," he said. "My son, go." Marisol's voice was flat again. "Thank you for helping." Ryan looked at her, really looked at her. Sitting in a broken wheelchair in a parking lot on the coldest night of the year, holding a crumpled drawing like it was made of diamonds. Her jacket was soaked through. Her hands were purple with cold. The nearest shelter was 3 miles away, and she couldn't get there on that chair. He thought about Tyler, home alone, scared, waiting. He thought about Sarah, 3 years gone, who would have stopped the car without hesitation. He thought about all the times in the past 3 years when he'd chosen not to see, not to feel, not to engage with anything beyond his tiny circle of survival. And he thought about Marisol's voice when she said, "I'm not stealing." The wall inside his chest cracked a little wider. "My car's right there," Ryan heard himself say. "I can take you somewhere, shelter, friend's place, wherever you need to go." "I don't accept charity." "It's not charity, it's a ride. On Christmas Eve. From someone who's already late getting home to his kid." He pulled out his phone, texted Tyler. "Emergency, helping someone, home in 30 minutes. I promise, I love you." Marisol stared at him. "Why would you do that?" "Because someone should have stopped for you hours ago, and they didn't." Ryan moved around to face her. "Because my son is home alone and scared, and that's not okay, but you being out here in the cold with no way to get anywhere safe is also not okay. And maybe I can't fix everything, but I can fix this one thing right now. So where do you need to go?" She was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was small, careful. "I don't have anywhere to go." The words hung in the freezing air. Ryan's mind raced. The shelter would be full on Christmas Eve. The churches would be locked up tight. Her caseworker had already proven useless. He didn't know this woman, didn't know her story beyond what she'd told him. Every reasonable instinct said this was where he politely excused himself and left. Instead, he crouched down so they were eye level. "I have a pull-out couch," he said. "It's lumpy, and the heater's inconsistent, and my kid's probably going to ask you 10,000 questions, but it's warm and it's safe and you can stay until we figure something else out." Marisol's eyes went wide. "You can't—" "I can. I am. Ryan stood up. Look, I get it. You don't know me. I could be anyone. But here's what I know. It's Christmas Eve, it's freezing, you're in a broken chair with nowhere to go, and I have space. That's it. That's the whole calculation. Yes or no? You have a son. You can't just bring a stranger. My son will understand. He's a good kid. Ryan's phone buzzed again. Another text from Tyler. He didn't look at it. What he won't understand is me leaving someone out here to freeze because I was too scared or too careful or too whatever. So, yes or no? Marisol looked down at her hands, at the drawing folded inside her jacket, at the broken wheelchair that had left her stranded. Yes, she whispered. Yes. Thank you. Okay. Ryan moved behind the chair again. This is going to be tricky. Chair's too broken to roll. I'm going to have to carry you to the car, then come back for the chair. I can... Marisol. He kept his voice gentle. Let me help, please. She nodded, not looking at him. Ryan had carried Sarah to bed more times than he could count during her last months. Had lifted her when she was too weak to stand, too tired to walk, too sick to do anything but lean against him and cry. He knew how to do this with dignity, with respect. I'm going to put one arm under your knees and one behind your back, he said. Tell me if anything hurts. It won't. Can't feel anything below my waist. Okay? Ready? Ready. He lifted her as carefully as he could. She was lighter than he expected. Too light. How long since she'd had a real meal? She went rigid in his arms, every muscle locked with tension. I've got you, Ryan said quietly. You're safe. The walk to the car felt like miles. His breath came hard and white in the cold. Marisol didn't say anything, but he could feel her shaking, could feel how much effort it took her to accept this help. He got the passenger door open with his elbow, lowered her as gently as he could onto the seat. Okay? She nodded, still not meeting his eyes. Ryan went back for the wheelchair. It was heavier than it looked, awkward with the broken wheel dragging. He managed to wrestle it into the trunk, had to tie the trunk lid down with a bungee cord because it wouldn't quite close. When he slid into the driver's seat, Marisol was holding the drawing again. Just holding it, staring at those purple hearts and that backwards V in love. Thank you, she said, so quietly he almost didn't hear it. You already said that. I needed to say it again. Ryan started the car. The engine coughed, caught, settled into its familiar rough idle. He cranked the heat, even though the heater was broken. Even though it wouldn't help. It felt like something he should do anyway. As he pulled out of the parking lot, he caught Marisol's reflection in the window. She was crying, silent tears tracking down her cold, reddened cheeks. She didn't wipe them away, just held that drawing and cried and stared out at the dark streets passing by. Ryan's phone buzzed one more time. He ignored it. Tyler was scared, and Ryan hated that. Hated being late, hated breaking promises. But Tyler was safe at home. Marisol had been anything but safe. Sometimes you had to choose between two hard things. Sometimes the right choice was still the hard one. The drive to his apartment took 15 minutes. Ryan spent it trying to figure out what he was going to say to Tyler. How did you explain this? Hey son, I know I'm late and you were scared, but I found a woman in a broken wheelchair digging through trash for a drawing her daughter made, and I couldn't just leave her there, so she's staying with us tonight. It sounded insane when he put it like that, but it was the truth. My son's name is Tyler, he said, breaking the silence. He's 8, talks a lot, asks too many questions, loves space stuff and dinosaurs, and that one cartoon about the talking trains. He sounds wonderful. He is. Ryan's hands tightened on the wheel. His mom died 3 years ago. Cancer. It was fast. 6 months from diagnosis to the end. Tyler was 5. Old enough to understand she was gone, but not old enough to understand why. I'm sorry. Yeah, me too. He took a breath. I tell you that because Tyler's been through a lot. He might seem okay, but he worries. A lot. About me being late. About me not coming back. So if he seems clingy or asks weird questions, that's why. Marisol nodded. I understand. Sophia's the same way. Every time I leave after a visit, she asks when I'm coming back, And I have to say, I don't know because they won't tell me, won't give me dates, won't commit to anything, just we'll reassess next month. That's cruel. That's the system. Her voice was bitter. They don't mean to be cruel. They just don't see us as people. We're cases. Numbers. Problems to be managed. And when you're poor and disabled and alone, you're not a person fighting for her daughter. You're a risk factor, a statistic, something to be handled carefully and kept at arm's length. Ryan pulled into the parking lot of his apartment complex. It was a rundown place, 3 stories of beige stucco and broken shutters. Half the parking lot lights were out. The one working streetlight flickered like it was considering giving up. Home sweet home, he muttered. It's perfect. He looked at her. It's a dump. It's shelter, heat, safety. Marisol met his eyes. After 8 months of shelters and street corners and broken wheelchairs, trust me, it's perfect. Something in Ryan's chest unclenched, just a little. He grabbed the wheelchair from the trunk, did his best to position it so the broken side was supported. Got Marisol settled in it, trying to balance the weight so it wouldn't tip. The front door of the building had a ramp, barely AD. Compliant, too steep, but it existed. They managed. The elevator was broken. Of course it was. Stairs or nothing, Ryan said. I'm on the 2nd floor. Stairs is fine. He carried her again, left the wheelchair at the bottom with a promise to come back for it. By the time they reached his apartment door, his arms were burning and Marisol looked like she wanted to disappear into the wall. I'm sorry, she kept saying. I'm so sorry. Stop apologizing. Ryan got the door unlocked with one hand, kicked it open. You didn't break the elevator. The apartment was small and cluttered, and every light was on. Tyler sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, his face red and tear-stained. Dad! He jumped up, started toward them, then froze when he saw Marisol. Who? Tyler. Ryan set Marisol carefully on the couch, straightened up. His son stared at them both with huge, confused eyes. Buddy, I'm sorry I'm late. I'm so sorry. Something happened, and I needed to help someone. This is Marisol. She's going to stay with us tonight. Tyler looked at Marisol, at Ryan, back to Marisol. Okay, he said in a small voice. Hi. Hi, Tyler. Marisol's voice was gentle, careful. I'm really sorry for scaring you. Your dad stopped to help me when I was in trouble. He's a good person. Tyler's lip wobbled. I thought something happened. I know. Ryan crossed to his son, pulled him into a hug. Tyler wrapped around him like a vine, shaking with leftover fear. I know, buddy. I'm here. I'm okay. Everything's okay. You promised 8:30. I did, and I broke that promise. I'm sorry. Ryan held him tighter. Sometimes emergencies happen, and we have to choose between 2 hard things. I chose to help Marisol because she needed help right then, and I couldn't wait, but I should have called you, should have explained better. That's on me. Tyler sniffled against his shoulder. Is she really staying here? Just for tonight, until we figure out somewhere better. Ryan pulled back, looked his son in the eye. Is that okay with you? Tyler glanced at Marisol, at the wet jacket, the too thin clothes, the exhausted slump of her shoulders. She looks cold, he said. She is cold. We should get her a blanket and hot chocolate. We have the good kind, with the little marshmallows. Ryan felt his throat close up. This kid, this beautiful, big-hearted kid who'd just spent an hour alone and scared, and his first instinct was still kindness. That's a great idea, he managed. Why don't you go get the spare blankets from the closet? Tyler nodded and scurried off. Ryan turned back to Marisol. She was crying again, silent and steady. I can't believe you did this, she whispered. I can't believe you brought me into your home, around your son. You don't know me. Don't know if I'm safe. Don't know anything except what I told you. I know enough. How? How do you know enough? Ryan thought about it. About the parking lot, the broken wheelchair, the fierce way she'd said, I'm not stealing, the careful way she'd folded that drawing, the way she'd cried without making a sound. I know what it looks like when someone's fighting, he said finally. Really fighting. Not for attention or sympathy or advantage. Just fighting to hold on to the people they love. I know that look because I've worn it. When Sarah was dying and the hospital bills were piling up, and I didn't know how I was going to pay for her care and keep Tyler fed and keep working enough to not lose everything. I fought. And people helped me. Not because they knew me. Because they saw me fighting and decided that mattered. Marisol pressed her hands to her face. Her shoulders shook. Tyler came back with an armful of blankets. He stopped when he saw Marisol crying, looked at Ryan with worried eyes. It's okay, Ryan said quietly. Sometimes people cry when they're relieved, when something hard finally gets a little easier. Tyler considered this. Then he walked over to Marisol and carefully draped a blanket over her shoulders. This one's the warmest, he said. Dad says it's made of magic, but I think it's just really good fleece. Marisol laughed. It was a broken sound, but it was real. Thank you, Tyler. It's perfect. I'm going to make hot chocolate now. Do you want marshmallows? Marisol's voice cracked. I would love marshmallows. Okay. Tyler bounded toward the kitchen. Dad, can Marisol have the special mug? The one with the penguin? Sure, buddy. Ryan sat down in the chair across from the couch, suddenly exhausted. Marisol pulled the blanket tighter around herself, watching Tyler crash around in the kitchen. The drawing was still tucked inside her jacket, visible at the edge of the blanket. When do you see your daughter next? Ryan asked. I don't know. They canceled tonight's visit, might not reschedule until after New Year's. That's 2 weeks. I know. That's too long. I know. Tyler emerged from the kitchen with 3 mugs of hot chocolate, marshmallows bobbing on top. He handed one to Marisol with exaggerated care, like he was presenting treasure. Thank you, she said softly. This is the nicest thing anyone's done for me in a long time. You're welcome. Tyler climbed onto the couch next to Ryan's chair. Dad, can we still watch the movie? Ryan checked his phone. 9:47 p.m. Late, but not impossibly late. What do you think, Marisol? You up for a Christmas movie? She looked startled. You don't have to. I know, but we're watching it anyway, and you're here, so you might as well join us. He grabbed the remote. Fair warning, it's that one about the train to the North Pole. Tyler's watched it about 40 times. 53, Tyler corrected, and it's the best movie ever made. Marisol smiled. A real smile. Small, but genuine. I'd love to watch it. They settled in. Tyler provided running commentary through the entire opening sequence. Marisol sipped her hot chocolate and laughed in the right places and asked questions about the plot that made Tyler light up with joy. Ryan watched them both and tried to process what he'd just done. He'd brought a stranger into his home, around his son, on Christmas Eve. After years of carefully controlled routine, of minimizing risk, of building walls to keep the world at arm's length, he'd just blown the door wide open. It should have felt reckless, dangerous, wrong. Instead, it felt like the first deep breath he'd taken in 3 years. When the movie ended, Tyler was asleep on the couch, curled up under his blanket. Marisol had nodded off too, her head tipped against the armrest, the drawing still visible inside her jacket. Ryan carefully lifted Tyler, carried him to bed. His son stirred just enough to mumble, "Goodnight, Dad, love you," before burrowing into his pillow. Ryan stood there for a moment, watching him sleep. This perfect kid. This miracle who'd somehow stayed kind and open and good despite everything. When he came back to the living room, Marisol was awake. She was sitting up, looking around at the apartment, at the cluttered bookshelves and the dying houseplants and the pile of Tyler's artwork on the coffee table. You have a good home, she said. He's lucky. I'm the lucky one. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why did you really stop? Marisol met his eyes. And don't say it's because you're a good person, or you couldn't just leave me there. I need to know the real reason. Ryan sat down in the chair again. Thought about it. Really thought about it. When Sarah was sick, he said slowly, there was this day, maybe a month before she died, when she had a really bad episode. Pain, nausea, the works. Tyler was at school. I'd called in sick to work. I was trying to get her comfortable, and she looked at me and said, "You're going to be okay. After I'm gone, you and Tyler are going to be okay. Promise me you won't close yourself off. Promise me you'll still see people, still help people, still be in the world." His voice caught. He pushed through it. "And I promised." But then she died, and it hurt so much, and keeping that promise felt impossible. So I stopped seeing people, stopped helping, stopped being in the world beyond what was absolutely necessary. And I told myself it was for Tyler, to keep him safe, to give him stability. But really, it was because I was scared. Scared of feeling anything, scared of connecting, scared of losing someone else. He looked at Marisol. "Tonight, I saw you in that parking lot, and every instinct told me to drive on. But then I thought about Sarah, about that promise. And I realized I've spent 3 years breaking it, so I stopped the car. And I'm glad I did." Marisol's eyes were bright with tears again. "Your wife sounds like she was an incredible person." "She was." Ryan's throat was tight. "She would have liked you." "How do you know?" "Because she always said the measure of a person isn't what they have or what they can do. It's how hard they fight for what matters. And you, Marisol Vega, fight harder than anyone I've ever met." She pressed her hand to her mouth, crying openly now. They sat in silence for a while. The apartment's old radiator clanked and hissed. Outside it had started snowing, big fat flakes drifting past the window. "I need to tell you something," Marisol said finally. "About tomorrow." "Okay. I have a custody hearing in 2 weeks. January 10th. It's a review hearing. They're going to decide whether to extend the foster placement or start moving toward reunification." She twisted her hands together. "I need to show I have stable housing, a job, support system, all the things I don't have." Ryan leaned forward. "What do you need?" I can't ask you for anything else. You've already done so much." "I'm not offering out of obligation. I'm asking what you need to fight for your daughter." Marisol looked at him, searching for something. Whatever it was, she must have found it because she took a deep breath and started talking. "I need somewhere to stay while I get back on my feet. I need help fixing my wheelchair. I need to get back to work. I was a physical therapist before the accident, and I still have my license, but I need adaptive equipment for my office. I need references, documentation, proof that I'm not just a risk factor or a case, but a mother who deserves to raise her daughter." She said it all in one breath, like if she stopped, she'd lose her nerve. "And I need someone to believe in me," she finished quietly. "Just one person, that's all. Just one person who looks at me and sees a capable human being instead of a problem to be solved." Ooh, Ryan didn't hesitate. "You've got one." Marisol stared at him. You don't even know me." "I know enough. You can stay here while you figure things out. We'll fix the wheelchair, get you set up with whatever you need. And when that hearing comes, I'll be there, if you want me there, as a character witness or whatever you need." "Why would you do all that?" "Because someone should have done it 8 months ago, and they didn't. Because the system that's supposed to help people like you is broken, and someone needs to stand up and say that's not okay. And because—" He paused, took a breath. "Because keeping my promise to Sarah means being in the world, really in it, not just going through motions. And this feels like being in the world." Marisol covered her face with both hands. Her shoulders shook with sobs she'd clearly been holding back for hours. Maybe months. Ryan got up, grabbed a box of tissues from the kitchen, set it on the coffee table within her reach. Then he sat back down and waited, giving her space to fall apart, space to feel everything she'd been fighting to hold back. When she finally looked up, her face was red and wet and exhausted. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. "You don't have to. Just promise me you'll keep fighting, for Sophia, for yourself." "I will." She wiped her eyes. "I promise." Outside, the snow was falling harder now, covering the parking lot, the cars, the streetlights, making everything clean and quiet and new. Inside, Ryan pulled out the couch bed, found sheets and pillows, made up a space for Marisol. She watched him work, too tired to protest. When he was done, she transferred from the couch to the bed with practiced efficiency. He looked away, giving her privacy. "Ryan?" Her voice was soft in the dim room. "Yeah?" Merry Christmas, Pa. He smiled. Merry Christmas, Marisol. He went to his own room and lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. His phone had 17 missed texts from Tyler and 2 from his mother. He'd deal with those tomorrow. Tonight, he just needed to process what had happened. He'd stopped the car. That was all. One simple choice, but it felt like the beginning of something, like the first crack in a wall he'd been building for 3 years, like maybe, possibly, the start of keeping a promise he'd thought was broken beyond repair. In the living room, he could hear Marisol crying softly, probably holding that drawing, probably thinking about her daughter. Ryan closed his eyes and thought about Tyler, about Sarah, about the woman in his living room who'd been fighting alone for so long. And he thought, tomorrow, we start fixing things. Tomorrow, we fight back. But tonight, for the first time in 3 years, he'd done something that mattered beyond survival. He'd seen someone, and he'd stopped. Morning came too early and too bright. Ryan woke to the smell of coffee, which was strange because he hadn't set the timer on the coffee maker. He lay there for a moment, disoriented, trying to remember why his back hurt and why there were voices in his living room. Then it all came rushing back. The parking lot, the broken wheelchair, Marisol. He rolled out of bed, pulled on sweatpants and a t-shirt, and padded into the living room. Tyler was already up, sitting cross-legged on the floor next to the pull-out bed, talking a mile a minute. Marisol sat propped against the pillows, still in yesterday's clothes, looking overwhelmed but amused. And then the T-Rex eats the lawyer, which is funny because Dad says lawyers are expensive, so that's a really expensive meal, right? And the kids hide in the kitchen, but the raptors are so smart. They can open doors and, "Oh, hi, Dad." "Hey, buddy." Ryan's voice came out rough. He cleared his throat. "What time is it?" 7:30. "I made coffee." "Well, I pushed the button. Marisol told me how." Ryan looked at Marisol. She offered a small smile. "He's very enthusiastic about dinosaurs." "That's putting it mildly." Ryan headed for the kitchen, poured himself a cup. Black, strong, exactly what he needed. "Tyler, give Marisol some space to wake up, okay?" "It's fine," Marisol said. "Really? It's nice." Tyler beamed at her and launched back into his dinosaur facts. Ryan leaned against the kitchen counter and watched them. His son, who'd been so scared last night, had apparently decided Marisol was safe. That easy trust should have worried Ryan. He'd spent 3 years teaching Tyler to be careful around strangers, but somehow it didn't. Maybe because Marisol wasn't really a stranger anymore. Not after last night. His phone buzzed. A text from his mother. "Tyler said you had an emergency last night. Is everything okay? Call me." Ryan grimaced. He'd deal with that later. "I should get out of your way," Marisol said, interrupting Tyler's monologue about velociraptors. "You've been more than kind, but I can't impose on you any longer." "Where would you go?" Ryan asked. She hesitated. "There's a shelter on 5th Street. They open at 9. "On December 25th? "They're open every day." "And they'll have space on Christmas?" Marisol's silence was answer enough. Ryan set down his coffee cup. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to stay here today. Tomorrow, we'll figure out next steps. But today is Christmas, the shelters will be packed, and you need rest. No arguments." "I can't." "Dad's right," Tyler chimed in. "You should stay. We're having waffles for breakfast. The really good kind with chocolate chips." Marisol looked between them, something fragile and uncertain in her expression. "I don't want to ruin your Christmas." "You're not ruining anything," Ryan said firmly. "Tyler, go get dressed. I need to talk to Marisol for a minute." Tyler scrambled up and ran to his room. The door slammed with typical 8-year-old enthusiasm. Ryan moved to the chair across from the pull-out bed, sat down. "Listen," he said. "I know this is weird. I know you don't want to accept help. I get it. But here's the thing. I made you a promise last night that I'd help you fight for your daughter, and I meant it. But I can't help if you disappear into a shelter system where I can't reach you. You barely know me. I know you're a mother fighting to get her daughter back. I know the system has failed you. I know you were digging through trash to hold on to a drawing because that's all they'd let you have of her." He leaned forward. "And I know what it's like to feel like you have to do everything alone. I spent a year after Sarah died refusing help from everyone. telling myself I could handle it, that accepting support meant I was weak or failing somehow, and it almost destroyed me. Marisol's hands twisted in the blanket. What changed? Tyler's kindergarten teacher. Ryan smiled at the memory. Miss Martinez. She pulled me aside one day and said, "Mr. Cole, you're drowning, and you're so busy pretending you're not that you can't see Tyler's drowning too. Let people help. That's not weakness, that's wisdom." Did you listen? Eventually, after I hit rock bottom and realized she was right. He met Marisol's eyes. Don't wait for rock bottom. You've already been through enough. She was quiet for a long moment. Outside, someone's car alarm went off, then stopped. The radiator clanked and hissed. "Okay," she said finally. "I'll stay today, but tomorrow we need to make a real plan. I can't live on your couch indefinitely." Agreed. Tomorrow, we make a plan. Ryan stood. Now, how do you feel about chocolate chip waffles? I feel like I haven't had chocolate chip waffles in about 2 years. Then you're in for a treat. Tyler takes waffle making very seriously. The morning unfolded with surprising ease. Tyler insisted on making the waffles himself, which resulted in batter on the ceiling and chocolate chips everywhere. But the end result was edible. They ate at the small kitchen table, Tyler chattering nonstop about the presents he hoped to get next year, and the snow outside, and did Marisol know that some dinosaurs probably had feathers? Marisol listened to all of it with patient attention, asking questions that made Tyler glow with importance. Ryan watched them and felt something settle in his chest. This was good. This felt right. After breakfast, Ryan went down to the parking lot to retrieve Marisol's wheelchair. In daylight, the damage looked even worse. The front wheel mount was completely sheared off, and the frame was bent where she'd been trying to balance it. He loaded it into his car with a growing sense of anger. How was someone supposed to rebuild their life when the basic tools for independence kept breaking? Back upstairs, he found Tyler showing Marisol his room, giving her a detailed tour of his dinosaur collection. Marisol sat on Tyler's bed. Ryan had carried her there at her request, examining plastic stegosauruses and T-Rexes with genuine interest. "This one's my favorite," Tyler said, holding up a battered velociraptor. "His name is Chompy. I got him when Mom was sick. She said he'd protect me." The room went quiet. Ryan stood in the doorway, not breathing. "I bet he's very good at protecting," Marisol said softly. "What else did your mom say about him?" Tyler sat down next to her, cradling the dinosaur. "She said that even though velociraptors were small, they were really brave and smart, and they took care of their pack. She said I should be like that, brave and smart, and take care of Dad." Ryan's throat closed up. "Your mom was very wise," Marisol said. "And I think you're doing exactly what she asked. You're taking good care of your dad." "I try, but sometimes I get scared. Like last night." Tyler's voice got small. "I thought something bad happened. I thought Dad wasn't coming back. But he did come back. I know, he always does. But Mom didn't come back. She went to the hospital, and then she was just gone." Tyler looked up at Marisol with huge, solemn eyes. "Do you think she's okay, wherever she is?" Marisol glanced at Ryan. He nodded, giving her permission to answer. "I think," Marisol said carefully, "that your mom loved you very much. And that kind of love doesn't just disappear. It stays with the people we leave behind. So in a way, she's still here. In Chompy, and in the things she taught you, and in the way your dad takes care of you." Tyler considered this. "That's what Dad says too." "Then it must be true." Ryan cleared his throat. "Hey buddy, I need to talk to Marisol about grown-up stuff for a minute. Can you give us some space?" "Can I watch TV?" "Sure, but not too loud." Tyler grabbed Chompy and scampered off. Ryan helped Marisol back to the living room, got her settled on the couch. He sat across from her, suddenly nervous. "Thank you," he said, "for what you said to him. About Sarah." "I meant it." "I know, that's why it mattered." Ryan leaned back. "Listen, I've been thinking. About your hearing. About what you need to prove to get Sophia back." "Ryan, let me finish. You need stable housing, a job, support system, references. Right?" "Right." "What if we could provide some of that? Not all of it. I'm not suggesting you stay here permanently. But what if you stayed for a few weeks while we get your wheelchair fixed and help you find a job and get documentation together? I could be a reference. Proof that you have people supporting you." Marisol shook her head. "That's too much. You don't owe me. This isn't about owing. This is about doing what's right." Ryan ran a hand through his hair. "Look, I'm not a social worker. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just a guy who works in building maintenance and barely keeps his own life together. But I know people. I know a guy who fixes wheelchairs on the side. I know the director of the rec center where Tyler does his programs. They're always looking for part-time physical therapists. I know someone who could help you navigate the legal system." "Why would you do all this for me?" "Because someone should have done it 8 months ago. Because it's what Sarah would have wanted. Because—" He stopped, started again. "Because last night, when I carried you to my car, you were shaking, not from the cold, from the effort it took to accept help. And I recognize that. I've been there. And I know what it's like when no one extends a hand. So I'm extending one. Take it, please." Marisol's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes. Say you'll let me help. Say you'll stay long enough to build a real case for getting your daughter back." She pressed her hands to her face. Her shoulders shook. When she finally looked up, her face was wet, but her jaw was set. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll stay. I'll let you help. But I'm going to pay you back. Every penny, every favor. I don't know how yet, but I will. I know you don't want repayment, but I need this. I need to know I'm not just taking, that I'm contributing, that I'm not a charity case." Her voice was fierce. "So let me have this. Let me promise to pay you back, even if it takes years, okay?" Ryan understood. It was about dignity, about agency, about being a person who gave as well as received. "Okay," he said. "Deal." They shook on it. Her hand was small and cold in his, but her grip was strong. The rest of Christmas Day passed in a strange, comfortable rhythm. Tyler watched movies, Marisol napped, exhausted from months of stress and one night of actual sleep. Ryan made phone calls, first to his mother, explaining the situation in broad strokes and enduring her worried questions. Then to his friend Marcus, who ran a small wheelchair repair business out of his garage. "Man, you're lucky I'm home," Marcus said when Ryan explained the situation. "Bring it by tomorrow. I'll see what I can do." "What's it going to cost?" "For you? Materials, maybe $50. I'll throw in labor because it's Christmas." "Marcus, don't argue. You helped me move 3 times. We're square." Next, Ryan called the rec center. The director, Angela, was surprised to hear from him on Christmas, but listened to his pitch about Marisol's background. "A physical therapist? With a license?" Angela sounded interested. "We've been trying to find someone for our adaptive sports program, but I'd need to interview her, check references, the works." "Understood. Can I give her your number?" "Please do. And Ryan, this is a good thing you're doing." By evening, Ryan had made 6 calls and gotten 3 solid leads. He presented them to Marisol over reheated pizza. His cooking skills didn't extend much beyond waffles and microwave meals. "Marcus can fix your chair for $50, he said. "Angela wants to interview you about the rec center job, and my buddy Steve, he's a paralegal, said he'd look over your case files for free to see if there's any legal angles we're missing." Marisol stared at him. "How are you doing this?" "Doing what?" "Making calls on Christmas, getting people to help, acting like this is normal." Ryan shrugged. "People help when you ask. That was the lesson Ms. Martinez taught me. I just finally learned it." "I don't know these people. Why would they help me?" "Because I asked. Because they're good people. Because sometimes that's enough." He took a bite of pizza. Marcus lost his sister to a drunk driver 5 years ago. She was in a wheelchair. He's been volunteering with disability advocacy groups ever since. Angela's program exists because her son has cerebral palsy and she wanted him to have a place to play sports. Steve does pro bono work because he grew up poor and remembers what it's like when the system grinds you down. "Everyone has a story," Marisol said quietly. "Everyone has a story. And when you share yours, people respond. That's how it works." Tyler wandered over, dragging his blanket. "Are we going to watch another movie?" "What do you want to watch?" Ryan asked. The one with the elf. The one who thinks he's human. Marisol laughed. I love that one. Then that's what we're watching. They settled in, Tyler on the floor with his blanket, Marisol on the couch, Ryan in his chair. The movie played, familiar and comforting. At some point, Tyler fell asleep. At another point, Ryan realized Marisol was crying again, silent tears tracking down her face during the scene where the elf finds his father. You okay? He asked softly. Sophia loves this movie, she whispered. We watched it together last Christmas, before everything fell apart. She laughed so hard at the burping scene. What was she like, before? Marisol smiled through her tears. Loud, energetic, always moving. She'd wake me up at 6 in the morning wanting to play. Would talk my ear off about everything and nothing. Made friends with every kid at the playground. Her voice cracked. I used to think she was exhausting. Now I'd give anything to be exhausted by her again. You will be. We're going to get her back. How can you be so sure? Ryan thought about it. About Sarah's last months, when everyone kept telling him to prepare for the worst. About Tyler's nightmares after she died. About all the times he'd felt certain things would never get better. I'm not sure, he admitted. But I'm choosing to believe it anyway. Because the alternative is giving up, and you don't give up, so I won't either. Marisol reached over and squeezed his hand. Just once. Then she turned back to the movie. That night, after Tyler was in bed and Marisol was settled on the pull-out couch, Ryan sat at his kitchen table with a notebook and started making lists. What Marisol needed, who could help, what resources were available. The custody hearing was 2 weeks away. That meant 14 days to build a case strong enough to convince a judge that Marisol Vega deserved to be Sophia's mother. It wasn't much time, but it would have to be enough. The next morning, Ryan called in sick to work, something he never did, and took Marisol to Marcus's garage. Marcus was a big guy with gentle hands and a decade of experience with adaptive equipment. He took one look at Marisol's chair and whistled. This is bad, he said. Frames bent, mounts sheared. Wheels got stress fractures. How long you been riding on this? 3 months, Marisol said quietly. Since the last time it broke and I couldn't afford repairs. Marcus shook his head. That's not safe. You could have been seriously hurt. He crouched down, examining the damage more closely. I can fix it, but it's going to take a few days. I want to do it right. Reinforce the weak points. Make sure this doesn't happen again. How much? Marisol asked. I told Ryan 50 for materials. I'll stick to that. That's not enough. Your labor is free. I've got reasons. Marcus straightened up. Ryan's a good man. He helped me through some dark times after my sister died. If he says you need help, that's good enough for me. Marisol's hands twisted in her lap. I'll pay you back. I promise. You can pay it forward. Help someone else when you're back on your feet. That's how it works. Marcus pulled out a loaner wheelchair from his storage area. Use this while I fix yours. It's not fancy, but it'll get you around. The loaner was basic but functional. More importantly, all the wheels were attached. Marisol transferred to it with practiced efficiency, her relief visible in the way her shoulders relaxed. Thank you, she said. Seriously, thank you. Don't mention it. I'll call you when yours is ready. On the drive back, Marisol was quiet. Ryan glanced at her a few times but didn't push. Some thoughts needed space to develop. Finally, she spoke. I don't understand this. Understand what? Why people are being kind. Marcus doesn't know me. Angela doesn't know me. Your friend Steve doesn't know me. But they're all willing to help. Why? Ryan considered his answer carefully. I think most people want to help. They just don't know how, or they're scared, or they're wrapped up in their own stuff. But when you give them a specific way to help, fix a chair, offer an interview, review some paperwork, they step up. It's not magic, it's just people being people. In my experience, people aren't like that. What's your experience been? Marisol looked out the window at the passing buildings, the gray sky, the salt-stained streets. When I had the accident, I thought people would help, my friends, my coworkers, my church. But they disappeared. Slowly at first. Stopped calling, stopped visiting, made excuses. And I understood. Nobody knows what to say to someone whose life just imploded. but understanding didn't make it hurt less. What about Sophia's father? Gone before I even knew I was pregnant. We weren't serious, just dating. When I told him, he said he wasn't ready to be a father and vanished. I haven't heard from him in 7 years. Her voice was flat, factual. So I raised her alone. And it was hard, but it was good. I had my job, my apartment, my life. Then the accident happened, and it all fell apart. And the people who could have helped just didn't. Ryan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Just don't disappear. That's all I ask. She looked at him. Don't disappear when things get hard, because they will get hard. The system is going to push back. The caseworker is going to question everything. The judge might not rule in my favor. And if you're going to bail when that happens, tell me now, so I can prepare. I'm not going anywhere, Ryan said firmly. I promise, when things get hard, I'll still be here. How can you promise that? You barely know me. I know enough, and I keep my promises. They drove in silence for a while. Then Marisol said very quietly, Okay, I believe you. The interview with Angela at the rec center happened 2 days later. Ryan offered to come along for moral support, but Marisol insisted on going alone. I need to do this myself, she said. You've already done so much. Let me prove I can handle this part. So Ryan waited at home with Tyler, trying not to check his phone every 5 minutes. Tyler was building an elaborate dinosaur habitat out of couch cushions and seemed unconcerned about the outcome. Marisol's going to get the job, he announced. She's really smart and nice. Ms. Angela will like her. How do you know? Because you like her, and you're good at knowing who's nice. Ryan smiled despite his nerves. Thanks, buddy. When Marisol came back 2 hours later, her face was flushed and her eyes were bright. I got it, she said. Part-time, 20 hours a week to start, working with their adaptive sports program. It's not much, but it's something. It's proof. Proof that I can work, that I'm employable, that I'm not just... Her voice cracked. Not just what? Ryan asked gently. Not just a broken person who can't take care of her daughter. Tyler jumped up from his cushion fort. You got the job. That's so cool. Are you going to teach people how to play sports? That's exactly what I'm going to do. Marisol pulled him into a hug. Thank you for believing in me. You're welcome. Can I come watch sometime? If your dad says it's okay. Ryan felt his chest tighten with something warm and unexpected. This was working. Against all odds, against the weight of a broken system and months of Marisol being ground down, this was actually working. That night, after Tyler was asleep, Ryan and Marisol sat at the kitchen table going through her case files. Steve, the paralegal, had reviewed everything and made notes. Most of them were encouraging. The good news, Ryan read from Steve's email, is that the state's case against you is weak. They've cited unstable housing and inability to provide, but there's no evidence of abuse or neglect. No drug use, no mental health concerns, no criminal record. Your only crime is being poor and disabled. That's not good news, Marisol said. That's the whole problem. The system punishes poverty. But it means we have a case. If we can show stable housing, employment, and a support system, the judge has to consider reunification. It's literally the law. Do you know how many times I've heard it's literally the law and then watched judges ignore it? Ryan looked at her tired face, her defeated posture. How many times have you fought with someone beside you? She was quiet for a moment. Never. It's always been just me. Well, not anymore. You've got me. You've got Marcus. You've got Angela. You've got Steve. You've got a whole team now. He slid the paperwork toward her. Steve says the hearing is mostly about proving you can provide a stable home environment, so let's prove it. Show them pay stubs from the rec center. Get a letter from me confirming you have housing. Document your wheelchair repairs. Show you have transportation figured out. Build an undeniable case. And if it's not enough, then we appeal. And we keep fighting. But Marisol, he waited until she met his eyes. You have to believe this can work. Not because I'm saying it, because Sophia needs you to believe it. She needs you to walk into that courtroom knowing you deserve to be her mother. Marisol's hands trembled as she picked up the paperwork. I haven't seen her in 10 days. The caseworker keeps canceling visits, says Sophia's adjusting to her placement, and my visits are disruptive. That's garbage. I know it's garbage, but I can't fight it. If I push too hard, they'll say I'm aggressive or uncooperative. If I don't push at all, they'll say I'm disengaged. I can't win. Ryan leaned forward. Yes, you can. Here's what we're going to do. Steve's going to send a formal letter requesting regular visitation per state guidelines. Not aggressive, just factual, citing the actual law. They can't say no to that without violating protocol. They'll find a way. Then we'll document it. Every canceled visit, every excuse, every time they move the goalposts. And we'll present it to the judge as evidence of systemic bias. He tapped the papers. You're not powerless, Marisol. You're just used to fighting alone. But you're not alone anymore. She stared at the paperwork for a long time. Then, slowly, she started reading. Really reading. Taking notes. Asking questions. Building a strategy. They worked until midnight. When they finally stopped, Marisol looked exhausted but determined. Okay, she said. Okay. Let's do this. Let's build a case they can't ignore. That's the spirit. But Ryan? She met his eyes. What happens if we do everything right and I still lose? What happens if the judge rules against me anyway? He thought about Sarah's last days, about sitting in the hospital while doctors delivered bad news after bad news, about the moment he realized she wasn't going to get better. Then we grieve, he said honestly. We rage. We feel everything we need to feel. And then we figure out the next step. Appeal, fight harder, whatever it takes. But we don't give up. Okay? Okay? She wheeled herself to the pull-out bed. Ryan started cleaning up the kitchen, putting away paperwork, washing coffee mugs. The apartment was quiet except for the radiator and the distant sound of traffic. Ryan? Marisol's voice was soft in the dim room. Yeah? Thank you for stopping, that night, in the parking lot. Thank you for seeing me. He turned to look at her. She was sitting on the edge of the pull-out bed, holding that crumpled drawing of Sophia, the one with the backward V in love. Thank you for letting me help, he said, for letting me keep my promise to Sarah, for reminding me what it means to be in the world. She smiled, small but real. We're quite a pair, aren't we? Two broken people trying to put each other back together? Maybe that's exactly what we need to be. The next week passed in a blur of preparation. Marisol started her job at the rec center and came home every day with stories about the kids she was working with. Tyler loved hearing about them, especially the 8-year-old boy who was learning to play wheelchair basketball. That's so cool, Tyler said. Can I learn wheelchair basketball? Why would you want to do that? Marisol asked, amused. Because it looks fun. And because then I could play with the kids you teach. Marisol's eyes got bright. That's very sweet, Tyler. Ryan watched them together and felt that warm tightness in his chest again. Tyler was happier than he'd been in months. More talkative, more engaged. Like having Marisol around had awakened something in him that had been sleeping since Sarah died. Marcus called on the 6th day. The wheelchair was ready. Ryan and Marisol drove to pick it up, and when Marcus wheeled it out, Marisol actually gasped. It looks brand new. Better than new, Marcus said proudly. Reinforced all the stress points, replaced both front wheels, adjusted the seat height, lubed all the moving parts. This thing will last you another 10 years easy. Marisol transferred to it, and the difference was immediately obvious. It rolled smoothly, turned easily, didn't creak or wobble or threaten to tip. This is incredible, she breathed. How much do I owe you? Told Ryan, $50 for materials. Marcus, and before you argue, I want you to know something. Marcus crouched down so they were eye level. My sister's name was Diana. She was in a chair for 8 years after a diving accident, fought the system every day for basic dignity, for access, for respect. And I watched it grind her down, watched her fight battles she shouldn't have had to fight just to exist in the world. His voice got rough. When she died, I promised myself I'd help people like her however I could. So this isn't charity. This is me keeping a promise to my sister. Understand? Marisol's face crumpled. She reached out and took Marcus's hand. I understand. Thank you. For Diana. And for me. Marcus squeezed her hand and stood up. You go get your daughter back. That's all the thanks I need. On the drive home, Marisol was quiet again. But this time it was a different kind of quiet, peaceful, like something had shifted. "People keep helping me because of who they lost," she said finally. "You because of Sarah, Marcus because of Diana, Angela because of her son. Everyone has a grief that drives them. Is that a bad thing?" "No, it's just sad that it takes loss to teach us compassion." Ryan thought about that. Maybe. Or maybe loss just strips away all the stuff that doesn't matter, makes us see what's actually important, like stopping for someone in a parking lot instead of driving on because you're late. "Do you think Sarah would approve of you helping me?" "I think Sarah would have stopped that car herself if she'd been driving." Ryan smiled at the memory. She was always bringing home strays, not just animals, people, anyone who needed help. Our house was constantly full of someone she'd met who needed a meal or a place to crash or just someone to listen. It drove me crazy sometimes. But she'd say, "Ryan, we have enough. We have to share." And she was right. She sounds extraordinary. She was. Not perfect. Nobody's perfect. But she was kind. Genuinely kind. The kind of person who made the world a little better just by being in it. His throat tightened. "I miss her every day. But having you here, helping you, fighting for Sophia with you, it feels like honoring her memory in a way that matters." Marisol reached over and touched his shoulder, just briefly. "She'd be proud of you." "I hope so." They drove the rest of the way in comfortable silence. When they got home, Tyler was waiting with a surprise. He'd made a "welcome home" sign for Marisol's repaired wheelchair, complete with crayon drawings of wheels and hearts. "I wanted it to know we're happy it's fixed," he explained seriously. Marisol laughed and cried at the same time, and told Tyler it was the best sign she'd ever seen. They taped it to the wall next to the pull-out bed, and every time Marisol looked at it, she smiled. 3 days before the hearing, Steve called with news. "I got the visitation records," he said. Marisol's had 12 scheduled visits in the past 8 months. 8 were canceled by the caseworker with less than 24 hours' notice. Of the 4 that happened, 2 were cut short due to behavioral concerns that are nowhere documented in the actual case notes. Ryan put the phone on speaker so Marisol could hear. "What does that mean?" "It means the system has been systematically preventing mother-daughter contact without valid justification. It means we have documented evidence of bias. And it means the judge is going to have some very pointed questions for the caseworker." Marisol covered her mouth with both hands. "There's more," Steve continued. "I pulled Sophia's placement records. She's been in 3 different foster homes in 8 months. 3. The current placement is with a couple in their 60s who already have 4 other foster kids. Nothing wrong with them. They have a good record, but it's overcrowded. Sophia shares a room with 2 other girls, has limited access to outdoor space. The school reports say she's withdrawn and struggling academically." "My daughter was an A student," Marisol said, her voice shaking. "She loves school." "I know, and we're going to make sure the judge knows that too. We're going to show that Sophia's well-being has declined in foster care, that she needs her mother, that every metric that matters points toward reunification." After the call ended, Marisol sat very still. Then she said quietly, "My baby's been in 3 homes. 3. How scared must she be?" Ryan knelt beside her wheelchair. "We're going to fix this. 3 more days, then we go to court and we bring her home." "What if it's not enough? What if—" "No what ifs. Not right now. Right now, we prepare. We practice what you're going to say. We get your clothes ready. We make sure every piece of documentation is perfect. We control what we can control." Marisol nodded, took a shaky breath. "Okay, let's practice." They spent the next 3 days preparing. Ryan borrowed a suit jacket from a friend. Marisol needed to look professional. Angela wrote a glowing letter of recommendation. Marcus provided documentation of the wheelchair repairs. Steve compiled everything into a binder that looked official and thorough. The night before the hearing, none of them could sleep. Ryan sat in the kitchen at 2 a.m., going through the binder one more time. Marisol wheeled in, also unable to rest. "Hey," she said softly. "You should sleep." "So should you." "Can't. Too nervous." She positioned herself across from him at the table. "What if I freeze up? What if I say the wrong thing? What if the judge doesn't believe me? Then I'll be there to back you up. Steve will be there. We have documentation, evidence, a solid case. Cases don't always matter. I've seen good parents lose their kids because a judge had a bad day, or because the caseworker was persuasive, or because the system just doesn't care about people like me. Ryan set down the binder and looked at her. Really looked at her. At the exhaustion in her eyes, the fear, the desperate hope she was trying so hard to contain. Marisol, listen to me. Tomorrow, you're going to walk into that courtroom and you're going to tell your truth. Not what you think they want to hear. Not some perfect version that makes you sound like you have everything together. Your truth. About loving your daughter. About fighting for 8 months to prove you're worthy of being her mother. About being human and flawed and scared but never giving up. What if my truth isn't enough? It will be. Because your truth is that you're a mother who never stopped fighting, and that matters. That has to matter. She was quiet for a long moment, then, will you sit with me? In the courtroom? I'll be right beside you, every second. Promise? Promise. The morning of the hearing dawned cold and bright. Ryan woke before his alarm, checked on Tyler, found Marisol already awake and dressed in the borrowed suit jacket. She looked terrified and determined in equal measure. They dropped Tyler off at Ryan's mother's house. She'd been surprisingly supportive once she understood the situation, and drove to the courthouse in silence. Steve met them outside, professional in his suit and tie, carrying his briefcase full of documentation. "Ready?" he asked. Marisol took a deep breath. "As I'll ever be." "Remember what we practiced. Answer questions directly. Don't get defensive. Let the facts speak for themselves." They went through security, up the elevator, down the long hallway to family courtroom 3. Every step felt monumental. Every breath felt harder than the last. At the courtroom door, Marisol stopped. Her hands were shaking. Ryan put his hand on her shoulder. "You've got this," he said quietly. "I believe in you. Sophia believes in you. You just have to believe in yourself." She closed her eyes, took one long, deep breath. When she opened them again, something had changed. The fear was still there, but it was joined by something stronger, something fiercer. "Okay," she said. "Let's go get my daughter back." They pushed through the doors, and whatever happened next, they would face it together. The courtroom was smaller than Ryan had expected. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in a harsh institutional glow. Rows of wooden benches lined both sides of a central aisle that led to a raised platform where the judge's bench sat, imposing and empty. The walls were painted that particular shade of beige that seemed to exist only in government buildings, and the air smelled faintly of floor polish and old coffee. Marisol wheeled down the aisle, her repaired chair moving smoothly and silently across the worn linoleum. Ryan walked beside her, Steve just behind with his briefcase. At the front, 2 tables faced the judge's bench. Steve directed them to the one on the right, and they settled in. Marisol's hands wouldn't stop shaking. "Breathe," Ryan whispered. "Just breathe." She nodded, but didn't look at him. Her eyes were fixed on the doorway at the back of the courtroom, searching, waiting, hoping. The door opened, and a woman in a gray pantsuit entered, carrying a stack of folders. Mid-40s, severe bun, expression of professional detachment. She took the table on the left without acknowledging them. The caseworker. Had to be. Then another figure appeared in the doorway, and Marisol made a sound Ryan had never heard before. Something between a gasp and a sob and a prayer. A little girl stood there, holding the hand of an older woman. 6 years old, dark curly hair pulled into 2 ponytails, wearing a purple dress that was slightly too big. She had Marisol's eyes, Marisol's chin. She was looking around the courtroom with wide, uncertain eyes until she spotted Marisol, and then her whole face transformed. "Mama!" The word burst out of her before the older woman could stop her. Sophia tried to run forward, but the woman held her back. "Sophia, honey, we have to wait for the judge," the foster mother said gently. "But that's my mama." Sophia's voice was desperate. "I want my mama." Marisol gripped the arms of her wheelchair so hard her knuckles went white. "Mi amor," she called out, her voice breaking. "I'm here, baby. I'm right here." "Ms. Vega." The caseworker's voice was sharp. Please refrain from disrupting the proceedings. I'm talking to my daughter. The hearing hasn't started. You need to— She's my daughter, Marisol said, louder now, and I will talk to her. Steve put a hand on Marisol's shoulder. Let's wait for the judge, he said quietly. Don't give them ammunition. Marisol's jaw clenched, but she nodded. Sophia was crying now, reaching for her mother while the foster parent tried to comfort her. Ryan felt his chest constrict. This was cruel. Keeping a child from her mother in the same room, making them both wait and hurt and ache across 20 feet of space they couldn't cross. All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Morrison. Everyone stood. Ryan stayed standing beside Marisol's wheelchair. The judge entered through a side door, a black woman in her late 50s, gray streaking through her short natural hair, reading glasses perched on her nose. She took her seat and gestured for everyone else to do the same. Be seated. Judge Morrison opened a folder, scanned the contents. We're here for a review hearing in the matter of Sophia Vega, case number 2024-FC-8847. Ms. Chen, you're representing the state? The caseworker stood. Yes, Your Honor. Linda Chen, Department of Child and Family Services. And you are? The judge looked at Steve. Steve Martinez, Your Honor, appearing as legal advisor to Ms. Marisol Vega, the mother. Judge Morrison's eyebrows rose slightly. Legal advisor? Not attorney of record? I'm a paralegal, Your Honor. Ms. Vega is representing herself. I'm here to provide support and ensure she understands the proceedings. Very well. The judge looked at Marisol. Ms. Vega, you understand that you have the right to legal counsel? That the court can appoint an attorney if you cannot afford one? Marisol's voice was steady when she answered. I understand, Your Honor. I'm choosing to represent myself. Noted. Judge Morrison returned to her folder. This is an 8-month review of Sophia Vega's placement in foster care. The state removed Sophia from Ms. Vega's care on May 15th of last year, citing concerns about housing instability and the mother's ability to provide adequate care. Ms. Chen, please present the state's current assessment. The caseworker stood, pulling out her own folder. Your Honor, Sophia has been placed in foster care for the past 8 months. During that time, she's been in 3 separate placements due to availability issues. Her current placement is with James and Dorothy Patterson, experienced foster parents with an excellent track record. Sophia is attending school regularly, receiving adequate nutrition, and has access to medical care. What about her emotional state? The judge asked. Ms. Chen hesitated. There have been some adjustment challenges. Sophia has expressed a desire to return to her mother's care. However, we believe this is normal for children in foster placement and doesn't indicate any inadequacy in her current care. Adjustment challenges. Judge Morrison looked at Sophia, who was sitting very still next to the foster mother, tears streaming silently down her face. That's one way to put it. What's Ms. Vega's current situation? According to our most recent assessment, Ms. Vega remains unemployed and relies on unstable housing arrangements. She has not demonstrated the ability to provide a safe, permanent home for Sophia. Additionally, there have been concerns about Ms. Vega's behavior during supervised visitations. What concerns? Marisol's voice cut through the courtroom. What behavior? Judge Morrison looked at her. Ms. Vega, you'll have a chance to respond. Let Ms. Chen finish. Marisol's jaw worked, but she stayed quiet. Ms. Chen continued. During visitations, Ms. Vega has been observed becoming overly emotional, which can be distressing for Sophia. She's also violated protocol by requesting access to Sophia's artwork and personal items without proper authorization. I asked to see a drawing my daughter made for me, Marisol said, unable to stay silent. That's not a violation, that's being a mother. Ms. Vega, Judge Morrison's tone was warning. I understand this is emotional, but you need to wait your turn. Your Honor, my daughter was taken from me 8 months ago. I've had 12 scheduled visits, and 8 were canceled with less than a day's notice. When I do get to see her, it's for 30 minutes in a sterile room with cameras and people watching my every move, taking notes on whether I'm too emotional when I hug my child. And when I asked to see something she made for me, something she wanted me to have, they called it a violation. How is any of that fair? The courtroom went silent. Judge Morrison studied Marisol over her glasses. "Those are serious allegations," she said finally. "Ms. Chen, is it true that 8 of 12 scheduled visitations were canceled?" Ms. Chen shifted. "Some visits have been postponed due to scheduling conflicts and Sophia's adjustment needs." "How many?" "I'd have to check the exact—" "How many, Ms. Chen?" The caseworker's lips thinned. 8 visits were rescheduled, Your Honor." "Rescheduled or canceled?" "Canceled, but in each case there were valid reasons." "We'll come back to that." Judge Morrison made a note. "Continue with your assessment." Ms. Chen took a breath, regrouping. "Your Honor, while we acknowledge Ms. Vega's love for her daughter, love alone doesn't ensure a child's well-being. Ms. Vega is a single mother with a significant physical disability. She lacks stable employment, stable housing, and a demonstrated support system. The state's position is that Sophia's best interests are served by remaining in foster care until Ms. Vega can prove she can provide adequate care. And how long does the state envision that taking? We recommend another 6-month review. That would give Ms. Vega time to secure employment and housing." "Another 6 months?" Judge Morrison looked at Sophia again. The little girl was crying harder now, trying to muffle the sound against the foster mother's shoulder. "Ms. Vega, would you like to respond?" Marisol wheeled forward slightly. When she spoke, her voice was clear and controlled despite the tears on her face. "Your Honor, I'm not unemployed. I started working at the Riverside Recreation Center 2 weeks ago as a physical therapist in their adaptive sports program. 20 hours a week to start, with the possibility of full-time as the program expands." She nodded to Steve, who pulled a document from his briefcase and brought it to the judge. "That's my employment verification letter from the program director." Judge Morrison took the letter, read it carefully. "Go on." "I have stable housing. I'm currently staying with Ryan Cole, who's provided me with a room while I save for my own apartment. He's here today to verify that." She gestured to Ryan. "And I have a support system. Ryan and his son Tyler. Marcus Washington, who repaired my wheelchair. Angela Torres, my supervisor at the rec center. Steve Martinez, who's been helping me navigate this process. These are people who believe in me, who see me as a capable person, not just a disability or a risk factor." Steve brought forward more documents. The housing verification letter Ryan had written, Marcus's repair invoice, Angela's recommendation letter. Judge Morrison reviewed each one. "Ms. Vega, these are recent developments," the judge said. "How do I know this isn't temporary, that you're not just checking boxes to get Sophia back?" "Because I've been trying to check those boxes for 8 months, Your Honor." Marisol's voice shook but didn't break. "I filled out every form, made every phone call, attended every meeting. I lost my job because of an accident that wasn't my fault. Lost my apartment because I couldn't pay rent from a hospital bed. Lost my daughter because the system decided poverty equals neglect. But I never stopped fighting." "Ms. Chen, you mentioned Ms. Vega's disability as a concern. Can you elaborate?" The caseworker stood again. "Your Honor, Ms. Vega's paralysis limits her mobility and her ability to physically care for an active 6-year-old. There are legitimate questions about whether she can adequately supervise Sophia, respond to emergencies, or provide the level of care a child requires." Ryan's hands clenched into fists. He wanted to stand up, to shout, to tell the caseworker exactly what he thought of her ableist assumptions. But Steve had warned him. Any outburst would hurt Marisol's case. Marisol rolled her shoulders back. "Your Honor, I was a physical therapist before my accident. I spent 10 years helping people recover from injuries and adapt to disabilities. I understand body mechanics, safety protocols, and adaptive strategies better than most people. My wheelchair doesn't limit my ability to parent. It's just a different way of moving through the world. But can you physically care for a child?" "I did for 4 years before the accident. I fed her, bathed her, took her to school, played with her. I was a good mother. And after the accident, I learned new ways to do all those things. I can transfer her if needed. I can cook from a seated position. I can help with homework, read bedtime stories, provide comfort and guidance and love. The only thing I can't do is walk. And that doesn't make me a bad mother." Judge Morrison was quiet for a moment. "Mr. Cole, you're providing housing for Ms. Vega?" Ryan stood. "Yes, Your Honor." "For how long?" "As long as she needs. She's staying in my home while she saves for her own place. It's stable and safe. and my son Tyler has benefited from having her there. Your son? He's 8. He lost his mother 3 years ago to cancer. Having Marisol around has been good for him. She's kind and patient and treats him with respect. She's been a positive influence. And you're comfortable having Sophia in your home if she's returned to Ms. Vega's care? Absolutely. I've met Sophia briefly today, but from everything Marisol's told me, she's a wonderful kid. She'd be welcome in our home. Ms. Chen stood again. Your Honor, with respect, this arrangement seems rushed and potentially unstable. Mr. Cole and Miss Vega have only known each other for 2 weeks. How can we trust that this housing situation will last? What happens if Mr. Cole changes his mind? I won't change my mind, Ryan said firmly. I made a commitment to help Marisol, and I keep my commitments. But you barely know her. You can't possibly... I know that she's a mother who loves her daughter. I know she's been failed by a system that's supposed to help. I know she's fought harder than anyone I've ever met for the chance to be with her child. And I know that's enough. That should be enough. Judge Morrison held up a hand. Mr. Cole, I appreciate your passion, but this isn't about what should be. It's about what is. Ms. Chen raises a valid concern about the stability of this arrangement. Marisol's face fell. Ryan could see her deflating, see the hope draining out of her. Your Honor, Steve said, standing, may I present additional context? Go ahead. Steve pulled out the visitation records. These are the official records of Ms. Vega's scheduled visits with Sophia over the past 8 months. As Ms. Chen confirmed, 8 of 12 visits were canceled by the state. In reviewing the reasons given, we found significant inconsistencies. 3 cancellations were attributed to Sophia's adjustment needs, but there's no documentation in the case file of any behavioral issues that would necessitate canceling visits. 2 were blamed on scheduling conflicts, but Ms. Vega had confirmed her availability weeks in advance. The remaining 3 had no explanation at all. He handed the records to the judge. Additionally, we pulled Sophia's placement records. She's been in 3 different homes in 8 months. Her school reports show declining academic performance. She went from an A student to struggling with basic reading comprehension. Her teacher notes that she's withdrawn, has difficulty making friends, and frequently asks when she can see her mother. Judge Morrison read through the documents, her expression growing stern. Ms. Chen, can you explain this pattern? The caseworker's confidence was cracking. Your Honor, foster care is complex. Sometimes placements don't work out. Sometimes schedules change. We're doing our best with limited resources. That's not an answer. Why has this child been moved 3 times in 8 months? The first placement couldn't accommodate her long term. The second had a family emergency. The third, the current placement, is working well. Is it? Because according to her teacher, Sophia is struggling significantly. And according to these records, you've systematically limited her contact with her mother without proper justification. The judge's voice was sharp now. Ms. Chen, I'm looking at a case where a mother has been fighting for 8 months to prove herself while the state has been moving the goalposts. Every time she meets a requirement, you add another. Meanwhile, her daughter is declining in foster care. That's not protecting a child. That's punishing a parent for being poor. Your Honor, that's not... We have legitimate concerns. About what? Her disability? That's discrimination, Ms. Chen, and I won't have it in my courtroom. About her housing? She has housing. About employment? She has a job. What exactly is the barrier to reunification at this point? Ms. Chen looked flustered. We need to ensure long-term stability. Ms. Vega has only been employed for 2 weeks, and you've only given her 2 weeks. Before that, how was she supposed to get a job while you kept canceling her visits, moving her daughter between homes, and treating her like a problem instead of a parent? Judge Morrison closed the folder. I'm going to take a 15-minute recess to review all these documents. When I come back, I want concrete answers from you, Ms. Chen. Not assumptions, not concerns. Facts. She stood and left through the side door. The bailiff announced the recess. The moment the judge was gone, Sophia broke free from the foster mother and ran to Marisol. She crashed into her mother's lap with such force that the wheelchair rolled back a few inches. Marisol wrapped her arms around her daughter and held on like she'd never let go. Mama, 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 Sophia sobbed into her mother's shoulder. I missed you so much. What? Why can't I come home? Why won't they let me come home? I know, baby, I know. I'm trying. I'm trying so hard. Marisol's voice broke. I love you so much. You know that, right? No matter what happens, I love you. I love you too, Mama. I want to go home. I want to sleep in my bed and eat your pancakes and watch our movies. I don't like it at Mrs. Patterson's house. She's nice, but it's not home. It's not you. Mrs. Chen stood. Sophia, you need to return to Mrs. Patterson now. The judge said 15 minutes, not don't. Ryan's voice was low and dangerous. Don't you dare. Let them have this. The caseworker stared at him. This is inappropriate. The rules have kept this child from her mother for 8 months. The rules have failed both of them. So maybe for once, we can let humanity override the rules. Ryan stepped between Ms. Chen and Marisol. Back off. Give them their 15 minutes. Steve put a hand on Ryan's arm. Warning. But he didn't disagree. Ms. Chen looked like she wanted to argue, but something in Ryan's expression made her step back. Mrs. Patterson, the foster mother, wiped at her own eyes and turned away, giving Marisol and Sophia privacy. Mother and daughter held each other and cried. Marisol stroked Sophia's hair, whispered to her in Spanish, kissed her forehead over and over. Sophia clung to her mother like she was afraid someone would pry her away any second. I have your drawing, Marisol said. The one with the purple hearts. I keep it with me all the time. Really? Sophia pulled back just enough to look at her mother's face. They said you didn't want it. That's why they threw it away. Marisol's expression went hard. They lied, mi amor. I wanted it. I went and got it back. It's the most precious thing I own. Can I see it? Marisol pulled the crumpled paper from her jacket pocket. She'd been carrying it every day since that night in the parking lot. Sophia took it with careful hands, smoothing out the wrinkles. I spelled love wrong, she said sadly. I don't care. It's perfect. You're perfect. Marisol cupped her daughter's face. And I'm going to get you back, Sophia. I promise. I'm doing everything I can. Do you understand? Mama is fighting for you every single day. I know. Mrs. Patterson told me you call all the time. She said you're being really brave. Marisol looked over at the foster mother with surprise. Mrs. Patterson offered a small, sad smile. She deserves to know you're fighting for her, the older woman said quietly. I've been doing this for 20 years. I can tell the difference between parents who've given up and parents who are fighting. You're a fighter, Ms. Vega. I've been praying for you. Thank you, Marisol whispered, for taking care of her, for being kind. She's a wonderful child. You did a beautiful job raising her. The 15 minutes passed too quickly. When the bailiff announced the judge's return, Sophia had to be gently separated from her mother. It was like tearing apart Velcro, painful and loud. Sophia was crying. Marisol was crying. Ryan felt his own eyes burning. Judge Morrison returned to her bench and waited for everyone to settle. Her expression was unreadable. I've reviewed all the documentation, she said, and I've reached a decision. Ms. Chen, the state's handling of this case has been inadequate at best and discriminatory at worst. You've systematically limited mother-daughter contact without proper justification. You've failed to provide stable placement for Sophia, and you've imposed barriers to reunification based on the mother's disability rather than any demonstrated inability to parent. Ms. Chen's face went pale. Your Honor, I'm not finished. Ms. Vega, while I'm encouraged by your recent progress, I have concerns about the timeline. You've been employed for 2 weeks. Your housing situation, while stable now, is dependent on Mr. Cole's continued goodwill. These are positive steps, but they're new steps. Marisol's hands gripped her wheelchair. Ryan held his breath. However, the judge continued, I'm also looking at a child who's been declining in foster care, a child who clearly loves and needs her mother, a child whose best interests are not being served by continued separation. She looked directly at Marisol. I'm going to do something unusual here. I'm granting immediate supervised reunification. The courtroom erupted. Sophia screamed, Mama! Ms. Chen shot to her feet in protest. Marisol pressed both hands to her mouth, sobbing. Judge Morrison banged her gavel. Order, let me finish. Supervised reunification means Sophia returns to Miss Vega's care immediately, but with oversight. A different caseworker, not Ms. Chen, will conduct weekly home visits for the first month. These visits will verify that Sophia is safe, fed, attending school, and thriving. After 1 month, if everything is satisfactory, we'll move to monthly check-ins for 3 months. After that, the case will be closed and full custody returned to Ms. Vega. Your Honor, this is highly irregular, Ms. Chen said. The state has serious concerns. The state has had 8 months to address its concerns, and in that time, you've done more harm than good. I'm not going to let this child spend another 6 months in foster care when her mother is willing and able to care for her. Judge Morrison's voice was steel. Ms. Vega, understand this is a probationary period. If there are any issues, any signs that Sophia is not being properly cared for, the state can petition for removal again. Do you understand? I understand, Your Honor. Marisol could barely get the words out. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet. Thank me after you've shown you can do this. And Mr. Cole? The judge looked at Ryan. I'm trusting you meant what you said about providing stable housing. If that situation changes, you need to notify the court immediately. It won't change, Your Honor. I give you my word. See that you keep it. The new caseworker will be Brenda Williams. She'll contact you within 48 hours to schedule the first home visit. Mrs. Patterson, please ensure Sophia's belongings are packed and ready for transfer by end of day. Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. Patterson was smiling through tears. It'll be my pleasure. Judge Morrison banged her gavel one final time. Case adjourned. Good luck, Ms. Vega. I'll be watching your progress. The moment the judge left, Sophia ran to Marisol again. This time no one stopped her. Marisol held her daughter and sobbed and laughed and couldn't seem to form words beyond mi amor, mi corazón, mi vida. Ryan stepped back, giving them space. Steve was packing up his briefcase, grinning. We did it, the paralegal said. Holy hell, we actually did it. You did it, Ryan corrected. That documentation, the way you presented everything, that was brilliant. Team effort, Steve clapped him on the shoulder. And that speech you gave about commitment? That sealed it. Judge saw a support system that wasn't going anywhere. Mrs. Patterson approached Marisol and Sophia. I'll have everything packed within an hour. Where should I bring her things? Marisol gave her Ryan's address. The two women exchanged phone numbers. Thank you, Marisol said again. For everything. For taking care of her when I couldn't. You were always taking care of her, Mrs. Patterson said gently. You never stopped. I was just keeping her safe until you could bring her home. She bent down to Sophia's level. You be good for your mama, sweetie, and remember what we talked about, being patient while she figures everything out. I will. Thank you for the pancakes. Sophia hugged the older woman, then turned back to her mother with such pure joy on her face that Ryan had to look away. Ms. Chen left without saying goodbye, her folder clutched tight to her chest, her face flushed with anger or embarrassment. Ryan didn't care which. They walked out of the courthouse into bright January sunshine. Snow from the previous week still lined the streets, dirty gray now, but somehow the world looked cleaner, brighter. Sophia held Marisol's hand as they moved toward the parking lot, chattering about her school and her friends and the dog she'd seen last week. Can we get a dog, Mama? Mrs. Patterson said we'd have to ask you, but can we? I promise I'll take care of it. I'll feed it and walk it and everything. Marisol laughed, the sound free and unguarded. We'll see, baby. Let's get settled first, okay? Okay, but then can we talk about the dog? Then we can talk about the dog. Ryan loaded them both into his car, Marisol's wheelchair in the trunk, Sophia bouncing in the back seat, unable to contain her excitement. Steve had his own car and left with promises to check in later. The drive back to Ryan's apartment was filled with Sophia's voice. She asked Ryan about Tyler, about dinosaurs, about his car, about everything and nothing. Marisol held her daughter's hand over the center console and cried silent, happy tears. When they pulled into the parking lot, Ryan's mother was waiting outside with Tyler. The moment Tyler saw them, he ran over. Did you get her back? Did the judge say yes? The judge said yes, Marisol confirmed, her voice thick with emotion. Tyler cheered. I told Grandma you would. I knew it. He looked at Sophia, suddenly shy. Hi, I'm Tyler. Your mom's been staying at our place. It's pretty cool having her there. Sophia studied him. Do you like dinosaurs? I love dinosaurs. Then we're going to be friends. Sophia said it with the absolute certainty only a 6-year-old could muster. Ryan's mother pulled him aside while the kids talked. You've done a good thing here, she said quietly. Your father would be proud. Sarah would be proud. I'm just trying to help. You're doing more than that. You're living up to the promise you made her, about staying in the world, about not closing yourself off. His mother squeezed his arm. I'm proud of you too. Ryan's throat tightened. Thanks, Mom. They went upstairs. Mrs. Patterson arrived 20 minutes later with 3 garbage bags full of Sophia's belongings and a backpack with her school supplies. She hugged Sophia one last time, gave Marisol her blessing, and left with wet eyes. The apartment suddenly felt very full. Sophia explored every corner, exclaiming over Tyler's dinosaur collection and the view from the living room window and the fact that there was a whole drawer full of hot chocolate packets. Tyler showed her his room and they immediately started building something elaborate with his blocks. Marisol sat on the couch, looking dazed. Ryan brought her water and sat across from her. You okay? He asked. I have my daughter back. She said it like she still couldn't quite believe it. She's here, in the next room. I can hear her voice. I can go to her whenever I want. Her voice broke. I didn't think this was possible. 2 weeks ago I was digging through trash. Now I have my daughter back. You fought for this. You earned this. We fought for this. She looked at him. I couldn't have done this alone, Ryan. You know that, right? Without you stopping that car, without you offering help, without you showing up in that courtroom and promising stability, I would have lost her. You wouldn't have. You would have found another way. Maybe. Or maybe I would have given up. Maybe I would have let the system grind me down until I couldn't fight anymore. But you didn't let that happen. You saw me. You helped me. You gave me hope when I had none left. Tears streamed down her face. How do I repay that? You don't. You just keep being Sophia's mom. That's enough. From Tyler's room came the sound of laughter. Sophia's high, bright giggle mixing with Tyler's deeper chuckle. The sound of kids being kids, safe, happy, home. Marisol closed her eyes and just listened. Ryan watched her face transform, the tension draining away, the fear receding, something like peace settling over her features. The caseworker comes in 2 days, she said finally. I need to be ready. Need to show them everything is good, that Sophia's safe and happy. She will be. But what if I mess up? What if I forget something or do something wrong? What if they decide I'm not good enough after all? Then we fix it, together. But Marisol, he waited until she opened her eyes. You're going to be great at this. You already are great at this. You're her mother. You know what she needs. Trust yourself. She took a shaky breath. Okay. She wiped her eyes. I should go check on her. Make sure she's okay. Is that crazy? She's in the next room and I can hear her laughing, but I need to see her. That's not crazy. That's being a mom. Marisol wheeled to Tyler's doorway and just watched. Sophia and Tyler had built an elaborate dinosaur habitat with blocks and were narrating an epic battle between a T-Rex and a Triceratops. Sophia kept changing the rules, and Tyler kept going along with it, both of them completely absorbed in their game. Mama, look! Sophia spotted her. We're making Dinosaur City. Tyler says I can be the mayor. That's wonderful, baby. Do you want to play? In a little bit. I just wanted to see you. Sophia smiled, that huge, unselfconscious smile children give when they feel safe and loved, and went back to her game. Marisol stayed in the doorway for a long moment, then wheeled back to the living room. She's happy, she said, wonder in her voice. She's actually happy. Of course she is. She's with her mom. That night, they ordered pizza and watched movies. Sophia sat curled against Marisol on the couch, their hands intertwined, Sophia's head on her mother's shoulder. Tyler sat on the floor with Ryan, both of them providing running commentary on the animated film about talking cars. It felt easy, natural, like they'd been doing this for years instead of hours. When Sophia started yawning, Marisol carried her to the pull-out bed. The transfer was awkward but manageable, and helped her change into pajamas. Ryan stayed in the kitchen, giving them privacy. But he could hear Marisol's voice reading a bedtime story, then singing something soft in Spanish. When Marisol wheeled back into the living room, her eyes were red, but she was smiling. She's asleep, holding Chompy. Tyler lent him to her, said velociraptors are good at protecting people you love. Ryan's chest felt tight. That kid. He's special. You've raised someone really special. So have you. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The apartment was quiet except for the radiator's familiar clank and the distant sound of traffic. Ryan thought about the past 2 weeks, about how much had changed, about the woman in the parking lot who'd said, "I'm not stealing," with such fierce dignity, about the promise he'd made to Sarah that he'd thought he'd broken beyond repair. What happens now? He asked. Now I be a mother. I get Sophia to school. I go to work. I meet with the caseworker. I prove every day that I deserve to have my daughter. Marisol's hands twisted together. And I save money, find my own place, build a real life. You don't have to rush. This apartment isn't much, but there's space. You and Sophia can stay as long as you need. Ryan, I mean it. Tyler loves having her here. And honestly, it's good for me too. Good for both of us. We've been so closed off since Sarah died. Having you here, having Sophia here, it's like we're remembering how to be part of the world again. Marisol was quiet for a long moment. Okay, but I'm paying rent. As soon as I get my first full paycheck, I'm contributing, and I'm cooking. You and Tyler can't live on pizza and frozen waffles forever. Ryan laughed. Deal. And I'm helping with Tyler. I can pick him up from school on my work days, help with homework. Give you some breathing room. You don't have to. I want to. You've given us so much. Let me give back. Let me be part of this, whatever this is. Ryan looked at her, really looked at her. At the strength in her face, the determination, the gratitude mixed with pride. She wasn't asking for charity, she was proposing partnership. A chosen family built on mutual support and respect. Okay, he said. Whatever this is, we'll figure it out together. Marisol smiled. A real smile. The kind that reached her eyes and lit up her whole face. In Tyler's room, his son was sleeping peacefully. In the living room, Sophia slept curled up with a plastic velociraptor. And at the kitchen table, 2 people who'd been strangers 2 weeks ago sat planning a future that looked nothing like either of them had imagined but somehow felt exactly right. Outside, it started snowing again. Big, fat flakes drifting past the window, covering the city in white, making everything clean and new and full of possibility. Ryan thought about that night in the parking lot, about slamming on his brakes, about making the choice to stop. That choice had changed everything. And standing here now, watching Marisol wheel over to check on Sophia one more time, seeing the peace on her face as she gazed at her sleeping daughter, Ryan knew he'd make that choice again, every single time. Because sometimes stopping, really seeing, was the bravest thing you could do. And sometimes it saved more than one life. It saved them all. The first morning with Sophia home started at 5:45 a.m. with the sound of whispered giggling from the living room. Ryan rolled over, disoriented, trying to figure out what had pulled him from sleep. Then he heard it again. Sophia's voice, high and excited, and Tyler responding in an exaggerated whisper that was somehow louder than normal talking. Shh. We have to be quiet, or we'll wake up the grown-ups. But I'm so excited. I get to go to school from Mama's house today. I know, but grown-ups get grumpy when you wake them up too early. Dad says it's because coffee hasn't happened yet. Ryan smiled despite himself and pulled on sweatpants. When he emerged from his bedroom, he found Tyler and Sophia sitting on the floor surrounded by every single dinosaur from Tyler's collection. They'd apparently been setting up an elaborate scenario involving a dinosaur school. Morning, you two. It's not even 6 yet. We know, Tyler said apologetically. But Sophia woke up and she was excited, and I heard her, so I got up too, and then we started playing, and it's okay. Ryan ruffled his son's hair. Where's your mom, Sophia? Sophia pointed to the pull-out bed where Marisol was still sleeping, curled on her side, her face peaceful in a way Ryan hadn't seen before. She looked younger, less burdened, like someone who'd finally set down a weight she'd been carrying too long. Let's let her sleep a little longer, Ryan whispered. You two want to help me make breakfast? Can we make pancakes? Sophia asked hopefully. Mama used to make them with chocolate chips inside. Chocolate chip pancakes coming right up, but we have to be really quiet, okay? The three of them tiptoed to the kitchen. Ryan pulled out ingredients while Tyler and Sophia perched on chairs at the counter, watching his every move with intense concentration. He let them take turns cracking eggs. Sophia's technique involved smashing the entire egg against the bowl, shell and all, which Tyler found hilarious. They fished out the shell pieces together, giggling quietly. Marisol woke up about 20 minutes later to the smell of pancakes and the sound of her daughter's laughter. Ryan watched her face as consciousness returned, saw the momentary confusion, then the realization, then pure joy as she remembered. Sophia was here. Sophia was home. Mama! Sophia scrambled off her chair and ran to the pull-out bed. We're making pancakes with chocolate chips. Mr. Ryan said I could flip one. Did he now? Marisol pulled her daughter close, breathing in the scent of her hair. That's very special. Are you happy, Mama? Are you happy I'm home? So happy, mi amor. Happier than I've been in a very long time. Over breakfast, they worked out the logistics of the day. Sophia needed to be enrolled in the local elementary school. They'd deal with transferring her records later, but Judge Morrison had made it clear that consistent school attendance was non-negotiable. Marisol had a shift at the rec center from 10 to 2. Ryan had taken the week off work using vacation days he'd been hoarding for years. You didn't have to do that, Marisol protested. I can manage. I know you can, but the first week is going to be hectic. Let me help get Sophia settled. Make sure everything's smooth before the caseworker visits. When is she coming? Tomorrow afternoon. Brenda Williams. Steve said she's fair. Tough but fair. Marisol's hands tightened around her coffee mug. Tomorrow? That's so soon. It'll be fine. The apartment's clean. Sophia's clearly happy. You're employed. Everything they need to see is here. What if it's not enough? What if she finds something wrong? Tyler looked up from his pancakes. Nothing's wrong. Sophia's here and she's safe, and you love her. That's what matters, right? Marisol's eyes filled with tears. Right, Tyler. That's exactly what matters. They got Sophia ready for school in a chaotic rush of finding the right clothes. Most of what Mrs. Patterson had sent was too small or too worn, and making sure her backpack had everything she needed. Marisol braided her daughter's hair with practiced efficiency, her fingers moving with muscle memory that 8 months hadn't erased. You're going to do great today, Marisol said, tying off the second braid with a purple elastic. And when you get home, I'll be here, right here waiting for you. Promise? Sophia's voice was small, uncertain. I promise, baby. I'm not going anywhere. The local elementary school was a 10-minute drive. Ryan had called ahead yesterday, explained the situation to the principal, who'd been surprisingly understanding. They had space in the first-grade classroom, and Sophia's records could be transferred within a few days. Walking into the school felt surreal. Marisol held Sophia's hand on one side. Ryan walked on the other with Tyler. They must have looked like a family, a unit. The thought should have felt strange, but somehow didn't. The principal, Mrs. Chen, no relation to the caseworker she'd made very clear, was a warm woman in her 60s who immediately knelt to Sophia's level. You must be Sophia. I'm Mrs. Chen. We're so glad to have you joining us. Sophia pressed closer to Marisol's wheelchair. Will the other kids like me? I think they're going to love you. And you know what? Tyler's in 3rd grade here, just down the hall, so you'll have a friend in the building. Sophia brightened. Really? Really, Tyler confirmed. And I'll look for you at recess. We can play on the swings. The 1st-grade teacher, Miss Rodriguez, was young and energetic and had the classroom decorated with bright colors and encouraging posters. She introduced Sophia to the class with gentle enthusiasm, and within minutes, another girl had invited Sophia to sit next to her. Leaving was harder than Ryan expected. Marisol held it together until they were back in the car, then she broke down completely. She looks so small, she sobbed. So scared. What if the other kids are mean? What if she has a bad day and I'm not there? What if she needs me and I can't? She's going to be fine, Ryan said gently. She's brave, like her mother. I've missed so much. 8 months of school, 8 months of her life. I don't know her teacher's name or who her friends are or what books she's reading. I'm her mother, and I don't know these things. So you'll learn them, starting today. You'll learn everything you missed and everything that comes next. That's what being her mother means now. Marisol wiped her eyes. I'm supposed to go to work in an hour. How am I supposed to focus when all I can think about is her? You'll manage, because that's what you do. You manage the impossible and make it look easy. She laughed wetly. Nothing about this feels easy. No, but you're doing it anyway. Marisol's first shift back at work was both exhausting and exhilarating. Angela had scheduled her with the adaptive basketball program, 8 kids ranging from ages 7 to 12, all with various physical disabilities. Marisol worked with them on ball handling, positioning, teamwork. She was patient and encouraging and clearly in her element. Ryan picked her up at 2, and they went straight to get the kids from school. Sophia came running out with a huge smile and a painting she'd made. Look, Mama, I made you a picture. It's our family. The painting showed 4 stick figures, 2 adults, 2 kids. One adult was in a wheelchair. They were all holding hands, standing in front of a house with a bright yellow sun overhead. It's beautiful, mi amor. I love it. Miss Rodriguez said I could take it home. And Mama, I made a friend. Her name is Emma, and she likes purple too, and she invited me to her birthday party next month. Marisol pressed her hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. Normal kid things, friends, birthday parties, the everyday miracles of childhood that she'd been denied for 8 months. That evening, they fell into a routine that felt both strange and right. Marisol helped both kids with homework at the kitchen table while Ryan made dinner, spaghetti, the one thing he could cook that didn't come from a box. They ate together, all 4 of them crowded around the small table, talking about their days. Tyler told them about the science project he was starting. Sophia described every detail of her first day, from the butterfly poster in her classroom to the fact that the cafeteria had chocolate milk. Marisol talked about the kid who'd made his first basket today after weeks of practice. Ryan just listened and watched and marveled at how full the apartment felt. How alive. After dinner, Sophia wanted to show Marisol everything. Her new crayons, the book Tyler had lent her, the spot by the window where you could see the parking lot and count cars. Marisol followed her daughter's lead, letting Sophia guide her through this new space, making it theirs. Bath time was an adventure. The apartment's bathroom wasn't designed for wheelchair access, and Marisol had to transfer to the floor to help Sophia bathe. Ryan offered to help, but Marisol waved him off. I need to figure this out. I need to know I can do this part myself. She could. It was awkward and required some creative maneuvering, but she managed. When Sophia emerged clean and pajama-clad, Marisol was flushed with effort but triumphant. Bedtime came too soon. Sophia didn't want to sleep. She was afraid if she closed her eyes, she'd wake up back at Mrs. Patterson's house and this would all have been a dream. It's not a dream, baby, Marisol promised, tucking her in on the pull-out bed. I'm going to be right here all night, and when you wake up tomorrow, I'll still be here. And the day after that, and the day after that. Forever? Forever. Sophia finally fell asleep holding her mother's hand. Marisol stayed there long after, just watching her daughter breathe, like she was afraid if she looked away, Sophia might disappear. Ryan found her there an hour later, tears streaming silently down her face. You okay? He whispered. I'm terrified, she whispered back. The caseworker comes tomorrow. And what if I mess this up? What if I already messed it up somehow and I don't even know it? You didn't mess anything up. You've been amazing. Have I? Sophia cried at drop-off this morning. She was scared and I couldn't make it better. What if the school reports that? What if they say she's struggling to adjust? Then we explain that it's her first day at a new school after 8 months of instability. Any reasonable person would understand that. Ryan crouched down beside the wheelchair. Marisol, you need to breathe. You need to trust that you're doing everything right. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. I get it. After Sarah died, I spent a year waiting for the next disaster, waiting for Tyler to get sick, or for me to lose my job, or for something else terrible to happen. Because when you've lost everything once, you're always afraid it'll happen again. How did you stop? I didn't, really. I just got better at living with the fear, at doing what needed to be done even while being scared. He met her eyes. You can be terrified and still be a great mother. Those two things aren't mutually exclusive. Marisol nodded slowly. Okay, I can do this. You are doing this. The next day passed in a flurry of nervous preparation. Marisol cleaned the apartment 3 times, made sure Sophia's clothes were organized, checked and rechecked that all the documentation was in order. By the time the doorbell rang at 2 p.m., she was wound so tight Ryan thought she might shatter. Brenda Williams was not what Ryan expected. She was younger than he'd imagined, maybe late 30s, with natural hair pulled back in a bun and a warm but professional demeanor. She introduced herself, shook hands with everyone, and declined the offer of coffee. "I appreciate the welcome," she said, "but let's keep this straightforward. I'm here to see how Sophia's settling in and to assess whether the home environment meets her needs. Ms. Vega, I've reviewed your case file, and I'll be honest. What happened to you shouldn't have happened. Ms. Chen's handling was inappropriate." Marisol looked stunned. "You're saying that? Out loud?" "I believe in transparency. The state failed you and Sophia. My job now is to make sure we don't fail you again." Brenda pulled out a tablet. "So let's talk about the current situation. Sophia's enrolled in school?" "Yes, Madison Elementary. She started yesterday." "How's she adjusting?" "Well, I think she made a friend, brought home artwork, talked about wanting to join the art club." "Any issues, behavioral concerns, difficulties separating from you?" Marisol hesitated. Ryan could see her weighing how much to admit. He stepped in. "She cried at drop-off yesterday," he said. "First day at a new school after 8 months of instability. It lasted about 5 minutes, according to the teacher. Today she went in without tears." Brenda made a note. "That's normal, expected even. What about living arrangements? Ms. Vega, you're staying here with Mr. Cole." "Yes, in the living room with Sophia. It's temporary while I save for our own place." "How long do you anticipate that taking?" 3 to 4 months. I'm working 20 hours a week now, but Angela, my supervisor, said she can increase that to 30 by next month. I've been looking at apartments in the area, trying to find something affordable and wheelchair accessible." Brenda walked through the apartment, checking the sleeping arrangements, the kitchen setup, the bathroom. She asked about food, what Sophia ate, whether there were restrictions, how meals were managed. She asked about emergency contacts, medical care, school pickup logistics. Then she asked to speak with Sophia alone. Marisol's face went white. "Why?" "Standard procedure. I need to hear from Sophia how she's feeling, whether she feels safe, whether her needs are being met." Brenda's voice was kind but firm. "This isn't a gotcha, Ms. Vega. It's just part of the process." Sophia came in from Tyler's room where they'd been building with Legos. Brenda settled her on the couch and asked Ryan and Marisol to wait in the kitchen. The 10 minutes felt like hours. Ryan made tea nobody wanted. Marisol stared at the wall, her hands twisting compulsively in her lap. "She's going to say something wrong," Marisol whispered, "or Brenda's going to misinterpret something and they'll take her away again." "They won't. Listen." From the living room they could hear Sophia's voice, high and cheerful, telling Brenda about her new school and her new friend Emma and how Tyler had the best dinosaur collection in the world. "And your mama?" Brenda asked. "How do you feel about being with her?" "I'm so happy." Sophia's voice was pure joy. "I missed her so much. Every day in foster care, I counted how many days until I could come home. And now I'm home, and Mama reads me stories and helps with my homework, and we get to sleep in the same room, and I'm never going to leave ever again." Ryan felt Marisol's hand find his. She squeezed so hard it hurt. "Do you feel safe here?" Brenda's voice drifted back. "Yes. Mama takes good care of me. And Mr. Ryan and Tyler are really nice. Tyler shares his toys and Mr. Ryan makes funny pancakes." "Funny pancakes? They're lumpy, but they taste good." Despite everything, Marisol laughed softly. Brenda called them back, and a few minutes later, Sophia immediately went to Marisol, climbing into her lap like she belonged there. "Everything looks good," Brenda said, making final notes on her tablet. "Sophia's clearly happy and well cared for. The living situation is cramped but functional. I'm satisfied that her immediate needs are being met." Marisol exhaled shakily. "So what happens now?" "I'll submit my report to the court. Based on what I've seen today, I'll recommend continuing with supervised reunification. I'll be back next week at the same time for another check-in. After 4 successful weekly visits, we'll move to monthly. Any questions?" "What are you looking for? In the next visits?" "Consistency. I need to see that Sophia continues to thrive, that she's attending school regularly, that you're maintaining employment, that the home environment remains stable. Brenda's expression softened. Ms. Vega, I'm not here to trip you up. I'm here to support your family. If you need resources, food assistance, childcare support, help finding accessible housing, tell me. That's part of my job too. Really? Marisol sounded skeptical. Really? The system should have been helping you all along instead of punishing you for circumstances beyond your control. I can't fix the past, but I can make sure the present and future are different. After Brenda left, Marisol sat very still for a long moment. Then she started crying. Not sad tears this time, relief, pure, overwhelming relief. We did it, she whispered. We actually did it. You did it, Ryan corrected. You were amazing. She said, everything looks good. She said, Sophia's thriving. She said, Marisol pressed her hands to her face. I was so scared, so certain it would go wrong. But it didn't, and it won't, because you're doing everything right. That evening felt different, lighter, like a weight had been lifted. They celebrated with ice cream sundaes, Sophia's idea, and let the kids stay up an extra hour watching a movie. Sophia fell asleep on Marisol's lap, and Marisol just held her, stroking her hair, humming softly. The next few weeks fell into a rhythm. Mornings were chaotic, getting 2 kids ready for school, packing lunches, making sure homework was done. Marisol worked her shifts at the rec center and came home with stories about the kids she was helping. Sophia made more friends. Tyler appointed himself her official big brother and took the role very seriously. Ryan went back to work, but the dynamic at home had shifted. It wasn't his apartment anymore. It was their apartment, shared space, shared responsibilities, shared life. Marisol started cooking, real meals with vegetables and spices and flavors Ryan had forgotten existed. She insisted on contributing to groceries despite Ryan's protests. She helped Tyler with his science project and taught both kids exercises to help with coordination and balance. She became part of the fabric of their lives so seamlessly that Ryan couldn't remember what the apartment had felt like before her. Brenda's weekly visits became routine. Each time she found everything in order. Sophia was excelling in school. Marisol's work hours had increased to 30 per week. The apartment was clean and safe. Sophia was happy, healthy, thriving. On the 4th weekly visit, Brenda arrived with news. Based on my observations over the past month, I'm recommending we move to monthly check-ins. Everything I've seen indicates that Sophia is exactly where she needs to be. Marisol's hands flew to her mouth. Really? Really, you've done everything asked of you and more. Sophia's school reports are glowing. Your employment is stable. The home environment is positive. There's no reason to continue weekly oversight. So we're okay? More than okay. You're succeeding, and I'm going to make sure the court knows that. After Brenda left, Marisol sat on the couch and just breathed. Sophia was at school. Tyler was at a friend's house. It was just her and Ryan in the quiet apartment. I keep waiting for it to fall apart, she said finally, for something to go wrong, but it hasn't. Every day I wake up and Sophia's here. Every day I go to work and come home and she's still here. Every day things just work. That's because you're making them work. You're showing up, doing the hard things, being the mother Sophia needs. I couldn't have done this alone. This apartment, your support, your willingness to... She stopped, struggling for words. Ryan, you've given me my life back. How do I ever repay that? You don't have to repay anything. But if you're determined to contribute, there's something you could help with. Anything. Name it. Tyler's birthday is in 3 weeks. I'm terrible at planning parties. Sarah always handled that stuff. But he's turning 9, and he wants to invite his whole class, and I have no idea where to even start. Marisol smiled. I can do that. Birthday parties I'm good at. She threw herself into planning with the same intensity she brought to everything else. She coordinated with other parents, arranged for a space at the rec center, planned games and activities. She insisted on helping with costs despite Ryan's protests. Let me do this, she said. Let me give something back to Tyler. He's been so good to Sophia, so patient and kind. He deserves a great birthday. The party was a huge success. 20 kids running around the rec center gym, playing games Marisol had organized, eating pizza and cake. Tyler's face was pure joy the entire time. At one point, he came over to Ryan, still bouncing with excitement. "Dad, this is the best birthday ever. Tell Marisol thank you." "Tell her yourself, buddy." Tyler ran to Marisol, who was supervising a game of wheelchair basketball. She'd borrowed chairs from the rec center so all the kids could try. He hugged her fiercely. "Thank you for my party. You made it perfect." Marisol hugged him back. "You're very welcome, Tyler. You deserve perfect." Ryan watched them and felt his chest tighten with emotion. This was what Sarah had wanted for them. Not to close off, not to hide, but to be in the world, to build connections, to let people in. That night, after the kids were asleep and the apartment was quiet, Marisol showed Ryan a lease agreement. "I found a place," she said. "Ground floor apartment, 2 bedrooms, fully accessible. It's about 15 minutes from here. The landlord approved my application. I can move in next month." Ryan looked at the paper, then at her. "That's great. Really great. You don't sound excited." "I am. I'm happy for you. You deserve your own space. Sophia deserves a real home, not a pull-out bed in someone's living room." He meant it, but there was also a hollow feeling in his chest at the thought of them leaving. We wouldn't be far. Same school district. Sophia could still see Tyler all the time, and you and I, we'd still be friends. This hasn't just been about giving me a place to stay. We've built something here, a support system, a chosen family. That doesn't end just because I get my own apartment. "I know, Ryan paused, trying to articulate something he didn't fully understand himself. "This has been good, having you both here. The apartment's going to feel really empty when you leave." Marisol was quiet for a moment. "It's been good for us too. Sophia talks about you and Tyler like your family, and She stopped, started again. "I haven't had people I could count on in a very long time. Having you in my corner, knowing you're not going anywhere, it's meant everything." "I'm not going anywhere, new apartment or not. You're stuck with me." She smiled. "Good, because I'm going to need help moving, and I'm pretty sure Sophia's going to demand weekly dinners so she can play with Tyler." Weekly dinners sound perfect. The next month passed in a blur of preparation. Marisol saved every penny from her paychecks. Angela increased her hours to full-time. Ryan helped her shop for furniture. Nothing fancy, mostly second-hand but serviceable. Marcus donated a kitchen table. Other people from the rec center contributed dishes, lamps, a bookshelf. The new apartment was small but bright, with windows that let in lots of natural light. 2 bedrooms meant Sophia could have her own space for the first time in almost a year. The bathroom was fully accessible with grab bars and a roll-in shower. The kitchen had lowered counters. It was perfect. Moving day was organized chaos. Ryan rented a truck. Tyler and Sophia supervised while the adults hauled boxes. By evening, the apartment was full of furniture and boxes but empty of organization. "We'll unpack tomorrow," Marisol said, exhausted. "Tonight, I just want to sit in our new home and breathe." They ordered Chinese food and ate sitting on the floor of the living room. Sophia kept running from room to room, exclaiming over having her own bedroom, her own closet, her own space. "Mama, can we paint my room purple?" "Maybe. We'll see." "That means yes." Sophia threw her arms around her mother. "I love our new home. I love it so much." Marisol held her daughter close, tears streaming down her face. "Me too, baby. Me too." When it was time to leave, Tyler hugged Sophia goodbye. "I'll see you at school Monday, right?" "Right. And you're still coming to my art show next week?" "Wouldn't miss it." Ryan helped Marisol check that everything was secure, that they had everything they needed for the night. At the door, she stopped him. "Thank you. For everything. For stopping that night. For taking us in. For standing beside me in court. For being the family we needed when we had no one. You would have done the same. Maybe, but you actually did it, and that made all the difference." She hugged him. "You saved our lives, Ryan. I hope you know that." His throat was too tight to speak. He just hugged her back and hoped she understood. On the drive home, Tyler was quiet. "You okay, buddy?" Ryan asked. "I'm going to miss them. The apartment's going to be lonely." "I know. I'll miss them too." But we'll still see them, right? We're still friends? We're still family. Friends doesn't quite cover it. There are people now. That doesn't change. Tyler nodded, satisfied. Good. Because Sophia's like my little sister. And Marisol's like... He paused, thinking. I don't know what she's like, but I like having her around. Me too. The apartment was too quiet that night, too empty. Ryan and Tyler ate leftovers for dinner and watched TV without really paying attention. At bedtime, Tyler lingered in his father's doorway. Dad, I'm glad you stopped the car that night. I'm glad you helped them. Yeah? Yeah. Mom would be proud of you. I'm proud of you too. Ryan felt tears prick his eyes. Thanks, buddy. That means a lot. After Tyler went to bed, Ryan sat in the living room and looked at the space where the pull-out bed had been, where Marisol and Sophia had lived for 2 months. The apartment felt different without them, emptier, but also like it was holding space, like they'd be back. His phone buzzed, a text from Marisol. Sophia wanted me to tell you good night. She says to tell Tyler the dinosaurs miss him. Ryan smiled and texted back, tell her the dinosaurs miss her too, and that we'll see you both soon. Tomorrow? For breakfast? If you're free? We're free. We're always free for you. Ryan set down his phone and looked around the quiet apartment. 2 months ago, he'd been going through the motions. Work, home, Tyler. Repeat. Keeping his promise to Sarah had seemed impossible. Then he'd stopped his car in a parking lot on the coldest night of the year. And everything had changed. Marisol had her daughter back. She had a home, a job, a future. And Ryan had learned what it really meant to be in the world. Not just existing, not just surviving, but really living, really connecting, really seeing the people around him who needed help. The promise he'd made to Sarah wasn't broken after all. He just needed to learn how to keep it. Needed someone to show him the way back. Sometimes stopping was the bravest thing you could do. And sometimes it saved more than one life. It saved everyone involved. The breakfast the next morning felt different from all the ones that had come before. Ryan and Tyler drove to Marisol's new apartment carrying a bag of bagels and a tray of coffee. When Sophia opened the door, still in her pajamas with her hair wild from sleep, she threw herself at Tyler like they'd been separated for weeks instead of 12 hours. You came! Mama said you were coming, but I wasn't sure. Of course we came, Tyler said, hugging her back. We always come when we say we will. Marisol was in the kitchen, attempting to figure out the ancient coffee maker that had come with the apartment. She looked tired but happy, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt. I was going to make coffee, she said, gesturing helplessly at the machine. But I think this thing predates modern technology. Ryan laughed and set down the coffee tray. Way ahead of you. 1 regular coffee, 1 with cream and sugar, and hot chocolate for the kids. You're a lifesaver. She took the coffee gratefully. We were up late unpacking. Sophia insisted on arranging her room herself, which meant rearranging it 5 times before she was satisfied. It's perfect now, Sophia called from her bedroom. Tyler, come see. I have a shelf just for stuffed animals. The 2 kids disappeared, leaving Ryan and Marisol in the small kitchen. She looked around at the boxes still stacked against the walls, the dishes piled on the counter waiting to be put away, the general chaos of a new beginning. It's a mess, she said apologetically. It's a home. There's a difference. She smiled, but he could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the weight of everything she was carrying. Moving into a new place was supposed to be exciting, but it also meant new responsibilities, new bills, new pressures to manage on her own. How are you really doing? He asked quietly. Marisol was quiet for a moment, considering. Terrified, grateful, overwhelmed, all of it at once. She took a sip of coffee. Last night, after Sophia fell asleep, I just sat in the living room and tried to process that this is real. We have our own apartment, our own space. Nobody can take this from us. Nobody's going to take anything from you. You've proven yourself 10 times over. Have I? The final court hearing is in 2 weeks. Brenda's been great, but that doesn't mean the judge will rule in our favor. What if they decide this isn't enough? What if they want to see more stability, more time, more proof? Then we give them more proof. But Marisol, you need to hear this. You've already won. Sophia's home. She's thriving. The caseworker's reports are glowing. The school loves her. Your job is going great. There's nothing left to prove. There's always something left to prove when you're someone like me. Poor, disabled, a single mother who lost custody once. Her voice was bitter. The system doesn't easily forget. They'll be watching me for years, waiting for me to fail. Then don't fail. And when they watch, show them what I see every day. A mother who fights harder than anyone I've ever met. Someone who turns impossibilities into realities through sheer determination. She looked at him with tears in her eyes. What happens after the final hearing? When this is all over and you don't have to help anymore? When you can go back to your normal life? Ryan set down his coffee. This is my normal life now. You and Sophia are part of it. That doesn't end when the court closes your case. No buts. We're family now. Tyler already told me last night that Sophia's like his little sister, and you— He paused, choosing his words carefully. You're the best friend I've had in 3 years. The person who reminded me how to be in the world. That doesn't have an expiration date. Marisol wiped her eyes. I don't know what I'd do without you. Good thing you don't have to find out. The weeks leading up to the final hearing passed in a blur of ordinary miracles. Sophia's parent-teacher conference went beautifully. She was excelling in all subjects, had made several close friends, and showed no signs of the trauma that had marked her time in foster care. Marisol's hours at the rec center increased to full-time, and Angela started talking about making her the program coordinator. The apartment slowly transformed from chaos to home as boxes were unpacked and furniture was arranged, and Sophia's artwork covered the refrigerator. Ryan and Tyler were over at least 3 times a week, sometimes for dinner, sometimes just to hang out. Once, because Sophia had a nightmare and Marisol called at 2 a.m., exhausted and overwhelmed, and Ryan came over and sat with her while she cried about how scared she was that she was failing somehow. You're not failing, he'd told her. Nightmares are normal. 6-year-olds have them all the time. Tyler had them for a year after Sarah died. But what if this is because of the foster care? What if I can't fix what they did to her? You're not supposed to fix her. You're supposed to love her, and you're doing that perfectly. Brenda's monthly visit came 2 days before the final hearing. She walked through the apartment, reviewed Sophia's school records, spoke with Sophia privately, and took extensive notes. When she was finished, she sat down with Marisol at the kitchen table. I'm going to be direct, Brenda said. My recommendation to the court is going to be full restoration of custody with case closure. No continued supervision, no probationary period, just a closed case and a family reunited. Marisol stared at her. Really? You're sure? I've been doing this job for 15 years. I've seen hundreds of cases. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that Sophia is exactly where she should be. You've exceeded every requirement. You've built a stable home. You're employed. Sophia is thriving in every measurable way. There's no reason for continued state involvement. What about the judge? Will she agree? Judge Morrison is fair. When she sees my report and Sophia's progress, she'll rule in your favor. I'm confident of that. After Brenda left, Marisol called Ryan immediately. She's recommending case closure, she said, her voice shaking. Full custody, no supervision. That's incredible. Marisol, that's everything you've been working toward. I know. But Ryan, what if the judge disagrees? What if she sees something Brenda missed? What if— Stop. You're spiraling. Take a breath. You've done everything right. Trust that it's going to work out. I'm trying. It's just— This is everything. If I lose now, after getting so close, I don't know how I'd survive it. You're not going to lose, but even if the impossible happened, you wouldn't be alone. I'd be right there with you, figuring out the next step. She was quiet for a moment. How did I get so lucky? Finding you that night? I think I'm the lucky one. You reminded me what it means to keep promises, to be brave enough to stop and see people who need help. The night before the final hearing, neither Marisol nor Ryan could sleep. They'd both put the kids to bed, Sophia at Marisol's apartment, Tyler at Ryan's, and then Marisol had texted, "Can't sleep, too nervous. Are you awake?" Ryan called her instead of texting back. "Want company? I can come over." It's 11 p.m., and neither of us is sleeping. I'll be there in 15 minutes. He left Tyler with his mother, who'd been amazing through all of this, stepping up to babysit whenever needed, and drove through the quiet streets to Marisol's apartment. She was waiting on the couch when he arrived, wrapped in a blanket, looking small and scared. "I keep running through everything that could go wrong," she said as he sat down beside her. "What if Sophia says something that gets misinterpreted? What if the judge thinks the apartment's too small? What if she decides I need more time to prove stability? None of that is going to happen. But let's say it does. Let's say the judge wants another 3 months of supervision. Would that be the end of the world?" Marisol thought about it. No. It would be frustrating, disappointing, but Sophia would still be here. We'd still be together. That's what matters. Exactly. You've already won the important part. Everything else is just paperwork. When did you get so wise? I learned from watching you. You've faced impossible odds and won. You taught me that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is keep fighting even when you're terrified. She leaned against his shoulder. "I'm so tired, Ryan. Tired of fighting. Tired of proving myself. Tired of waiting for the other shoe to drop. I just want to be Sophia's mom without the state looking over my shoulder." "After tomorrow you will be. This is the last hurdle. Then it's done. Promise?" "Promise." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic. Outside, the city lights twinkled through the window. "Ryan?" Marisol's voice was soft. "What you said about being family, did you mean that?" "Every word." "Why?" "Because I've been thinking about what family means. For the longest time, it was just me and Sophia. We didn't have anyone else. And I told myself that was okay, that we were enough. But these past few months, having you and Tyler in our lives, I've realized how much we were missing. How much easier things are when you have people who care, who show up, who don't disappear when things get hard. You have that now, for as long as you want it." "Forever sounds good." Ryan smiled. "Forever it is." The morning of the final hearing dawned clear and cold. Ryan picked up Marisol and Sophia at 9 a.m. Sophia was unusually quiet, sensing the tension in her mother's shoulders, the nervous way Marisol kept checking and rechecking that they had all the necessary documents. "Mama, are you scared?" Sophia asked from the back seat. "A little bit, mi amor, but it's going to be okay." "Is the judge nice?" "She's very fair, and she wants what's best for you. That's all that matters." "What's best for me is being with you. Everyone knows that." Marisol's eyes filled with tears. "I hope so, baby. I really hope so." Steve met them at the courthouse, looking confident in his suit. "Ready for this?" "As ready as I'll ever be," Marisol said. "You're going to do great. Just answer the judge's questions honestly. Don't embellish, don't get defensive. The facts speak for themselves." They went through security and up to the same courtroom where this had all started 3 months ago. It felt different this time, less intimidating, more like a finish line than an obstacle. Judge Morrison entered exactly on time. Everyone stood, then sat as she gestured. She opened the file in front of her and read for what felt like an eternity. "Ms. Vega," she finally said, "I've reviewed caseworker Williams' report. I've seen Sophia's school records. I've read the employment verification from the rec center. I've examined the documentation of your housing situation. Everything indicates significant progress." Marisol gripped the armrests of her wheelchair. "Yes, Your Honor." "How has the transition been? Any challenges I should know about?" "There have been adjustments. Sophia had nightmares the first few weeks. She was anxious about school, worried about making friends. But we worked through it together. She's doing well now. Better than well, actually. She's thriving." "What about you? How are you managing full-time work and parenting?" "It's exhausting sometimes," Marisol admitted. "Balancing everything isn't easy, but I have support. Ryan helps with pickup when I work late. The rec center is flexible with my schedule. Sophia's teacher has been understanding. We've built a network of people we can count on." Judge Morrison looked at Ryan. "Mr. Cole, you're still involved in supporting Ms. Vega?" "Yes, Your Honor. We have dinner together several times a week. The kids are close. Marisol and I help each other out with childcare and logistics. He paused, then decided to say it plainly. "We're family. Not by blood, but by choice." The judge made a note. "Sophia, would you come up here, please?" Sophia looked at Marisol with frightened eyes. Marisol nodded encouragingly, and Sophia walked to the judge's bench with small, uncertain steps. Judge Morrison smiled at her. "Hi, Sophia. Remember me? You're the judge who said I could go home to Mama." "That's right. I wanted to ask you a few questions. Is that okay?" "Okay." "How do you like your new school?" "I love it. I'm in Miss Rodriguez's class, and we're learning about butterflies, and I have 3 best friends named Emma and Zoe and Marcus." "That's wonderful. And how are things at home with your mama?" Sophia's face lit up. "Really good. Mama helps me with homework, and we read stories every night, and she makes the best pancakes, and we painted my room purple, and—" She paused, thinking. "I'm happy. That's the most important thing, right? That I'm happy?" Judge Morrison's expression softened. "That's very important. Do you feel safe with your mama?" "Always. Mama takes care of me. She always has." "Thank you, Sophia. You can sit back down." Sophia returned to Marisol and climbed into her lap, despite being slightly too big for it. Marisol wrapped her arms around her daughter and held tight. Judge Morrison reviewed her notes one more time. Then she looked up, and her expression was kind. "When I first saw this case 3 months ago, I was troubled by what I read. A mother who'd been systematically prevented from seeing her daughter, a child who'd been moved through multiple foster homes, a system that had failed to provide support or pathways to reunification. What I saw was a family torn apart not by abuse or neglect, but by poverty and bias." Marisol's breath caught. "What I see today is dramatically different. I see a mother who's done everything asked of her and more, who's secured stable housing and full-time employment, who's created a support system, who's proven beyond any doubt that she's capable of providing excellent care for her daughter. More importantly, I see a child who's happy, healthy, and thriving in her mother's care." The judge closed the file. "Based on all evidence presented, I'm ordering full restoration of custody to Marisol Vega. All state supervision is terminated effective immediately. This case is closed." For a moment, no one moved. The words hung in the air, too big to fully comprehend. Then Marisol started sobbing. Deep, wrenching sobs of relief and joy and disbelief. Sophia was crying too, hugging her mother tight. Ryan felt his own eyes burning. "Thank you," Marisol managed to say through her tears. "Thank you so much, Your Honor." "Don't thank me. You did this. You fought for your daughter and you won. That takes courage most people don't have." Judge Morrison stood. "Good luck, Ms. Vega. I don't expect to see you in my courtroom again." "You won't, Your Honor. I promise you won't." Outside the courtroom, Steve was grinning so wide his face must have hurt. "Congratulations. Full custody, case closed. You did it." Marisol couldn't stop crying. Happy tears, but they wouldn't stop. Sophia clung to her, laughing and crying at the same time. Ryan stood back, giving them their moment, feeling his heart swell with pride and joy. Finally, Marisol reached out and pulled him into the embrace. "We did it. We actually did it." "You did it," he corrected. "I just stood beside you." "No, we did it together. This victory belongs to all of us." They went out for lunch to celebrate, a diner near the courthouse that served enormous milkshakes and burgers. Sophia ordered chocolate chip pancakes even though it was lunchtime, and no one had the heart to tell her no. Tyler, who'd been brought by Ryan's mother straight from school, kept high-fiving everyone he could reach. "We should celebrate forever," Sophia declared. "Every day should be a party." "Maybe not every day," Marisol said, laughing, "but today definitely deserves a party." Ryan watched them across the table. Marisol and Sophia, faces flushed with joy, talking over each other in their excitement. Tyler chattering about the science fair next week. His mother smiling indulgently at all of them. This table full of people who'd been strangers a few months ago and were now irrevocably woven into each other's lives. His phone buzzed. A text from Angela. "Heard the news from Brenda. Congratulations, drinks on me next time I see you." Another from Marcus. "Steve just called. So proud of you all. That little girl is lucky to have her mama back." The news was spreading, the community they'd built rallying around this victory. Because it wasn't just Marisol's victory. It was everyone who'd helped, everyone who'd believed, everyone who'd stood up and said that poverty and disability shouldn't separate families. That evening, back at Marisol's apartment, they found a package waiting at the door. No return address. Inside was a framed photo. Someone had taken a picture of Marisol and Sofia leaving the courthouse that first day, holding hands, Sofia's face lit with joy. Underneath, someone had written, "A family reunited, a promise kept." Marisol stared at it with tears streaming down her face. "Who would do this?" "Someone who cares," Ryan said. "Someone who wanted you to remember this moment." She hung it in the living room, in the spot with the best light. It became the centerpiece of their home, a reminder of how far they'd come, how much they'd fought, how they'd won. The months that followed were beautifully ordinary. Marisol settled into her role as program coordinator at the rec center. Sofia continued to excel in school and asked for a dog at least twice a week. Tyler and Sofia became inseparable, their friendship deepening into something like siblinghood. Ryan found himself spending more time at Marisol's apartment than his own, helping with homework and cooking dinner and being part of the daily rhythm of their lives. 6 months after the final hearing, Marisol started a support group for parents fighting the foster care system. She called it Second Chances and held meetings twice a month at the rec center. She shared her story, the accident, the loss, the fight, the victory, and helped other parents navigate the impossible maze she'd survived. Ryan came to the first meeting to support her. He watched her stand in front of 20 parents, speaking with confidence and compassion, offering hope to people who'd lost it. She was magnetic, powerful, a force of nature who'd turned her pain into purpose. After the meeting, a woman approached her in tears. "I lost my kids 2 years ago. I thought I'd never get them back. But hearing your story, you've given me hope." "Don't just hope," Marisol said, taking the woman's hands. "Fight, and let us help you fight. You're not alone anymore." Ryan walked home that night feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Pride. Not in himself, though he was part of this. Pride in what they'd built together, in how Marisol had taken her trauma and transformed it into fuel to help others, and how one choice to stop his car had rippled outward, touching more lives than he could count. 1 year after that night in the parking lot, Ryan and Tyler threw a party. They called it a first anniversary party, though it wasn't clear what exactly they were celebrating, just that it had been a year since everything changed. Marisol and Sofia came over early to help decorate. Marcus brought a cake he'd made himself. Angela brought her family. Steve came with his wife and kids. Ryan's mother was there, beaming with pride at her son. The apartment was packed with people laughing and talking and celebrating life. At some point, Ryan found himself on the small balcony with Marisol, escaping the noise for a moment of quiet. "Can you believe it's been a year?" she asked. "Honestly? No, it feels like yesterday and forever ago at the same time." "I was thinking about that night, about being in that parking lot, so cold and scared and certain I'd lost everything that mattered, about watching you get out of your car and thinking, here's another person who's going to judge me. But you didn't. You saw me." "How could I not? You were impossible to ignore." She laughed. "I was a mess. You were magnificent. You still are." Marisol looked out at the city lights. "Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if you hadn't stopped, if you'd driven on like everyone else did. I don't like to think about that." "I do, because it reminds me how fragile everything was, how close I came to losing her forever, how one person's choice to care can change everything." She turned to face him. "You saved my life, Ryan, mine and Sophia's. I don't think I've ever properly thanked you for that. You don't need to thank me. You did the hard part. I just gave you a chance. You gave me more than a chance. You gave me hope. You stood beside me when I had no one. You fought for us when we couldn't fight for ourselves. You—" her voice broke. "You're the best friend I've ever had. The best person I know." Ryan felt his throat tighten. "The feeling's mutual. You taught me how to keep a promise I thought I'd broken. You showed me what it means to be brave. You reminded me that closing yourself off isn't protecting yourself. It's just another kind of dying." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance. Inside, they could hear Tyler and Sofia laughing about something, Marcus's deep voice telling a story, the sound of family. "What are you thinking?" Marisol asked. "That Sarah would have loved you. She would have stopped that car too if she'd been driving. She would have brought you home and fought beside you and welcomed you into our family without hesitation. I wish I could have met her." "Me too, but I think—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. I think she'd be happy about this. About us. About the family we've built. Not as a replacement for what we had, but as something new. Something good that came from honoring her memory. Marisol nodded. Tyler talks about her sometimes. Always with love. You've done a beautiful job keeping her alive for him. I'm trying. Some days are easier than others. That's all any of us can do. Try. And surround ourselves with people who help us keep trying when it gets hard. Inside, someone called for them to come cut the cake. They went back in together, joining the celebration, surrounded by the people who'd become their chosen family. Marisol cut the cake while Sophia bounced excitedly beside her. Tyler helped serve pieces to everyone. Marcus told an embarrassing story about the first time Marisol had tried to repair her own wheelchair. Angela shared updates about the rec center's expansion plans. Steve announced that his pro bono work had helped 3 more families reunite that month. It was loud and chaotic and perfect. Later, after everyone had gone home and Tyler was asleep, Ryan sat in his quiet apartment and thought about promises. About the one he'd made to Sarah to stay in the world. About how he'd thought he'd broken it. About how one cold night and one broken wheelchair and one woman's fierce dignity had shown him the way back. His phone buzzed. A text from Marisol. Thank you for today, for this year, for everything. I love you, friend. Ryan smiled and typed back. Love you too. See you tomorrow? Always. He set down his phone and looked around his apartment. It wasn't empty anymore. Wasn't just a place to exist. It was part of a larger home, one that stretched across 15 minutes of city streets to include a small apartment where a mother and daughter were probably getting ready for bed, where Sophia was likely begging for one more story, where Marisol was probably already planning tomorrow's schedule. That home also included everyone who'd helped along the way. Marcus with his wheelchair repairs and quiet kindness, Angela with her job offer and flexibility, Steve with his legal expertise and generous heart, Brenda with her fairness and advocacy, Judge Morrison with her wisdom and courage to see beyond the system's failures, and it included Sarah, too. Her memory, her love, the promise she'd asked him to keep, and the way keeping it had saved him just as much as it had saved Marisol and Sophia. 2 months later, Marisol called Ryan with news. The rec center wants to expand the adaptive sports program. They're offering me a promotion, full director position with my own budget and staff. Marisol, that's incredible. It's terrifying. It's a lot of responsibility, a lot of pressure. But Angela thinks I can do it, and honestly, I think I can too. Of course you can. You can do anything. The pay increase means I can start saving, really saving, maybe eventually buy a house, give Sophia a yard, a dog, all the things I never thought we'd have. Ryan felt pride swell in his chest. You've earned it. All of it. We've earned it. None of this would have happened without you. I think you would have found a way. Maybe. But it would have been so much harder, so much lonelier. She paused. Ryan, I've been thinking about gratitude, about paying forward what you gave me. I want to start a nonprofit, help families like mine navigate the system, provide resources, advocate for change. Make sure what happened to me doesn't keep happening to others. That's ambitious. I know. It'll take time. Years, probably. But I have to try. I have to turn this experience into something that helps people. Otherwise, what was it all for? It was for getting Sophia back. That's enough. It's not, though. It can't be. Because there are hundreds of families out there right now going through what I went through. Losing their kids, not because of abuse or neglect, but because they're poor or disabled or don't have the right support. Someone has to fight for them. Why not me? Ryan smiled. Why not you indeed? What do you need? Help. Advice. Probably money at some point, but mostly just people who believe it's possible. You've got that. Count me in. The nonprofit launched 8 months later. Marisol called it Breaking Barriers, a name Sophia had suggested. They started small, a website with resources, a hotline parents could call for advice, monthly support group meetings that grew from 20 people to 50 to 100. Marisol spoke at community centers and churches and anywhere people would listen. She told her story again and again, turning her pain into power, her trauma into advocacy. She helped parents fill out forms and prepare for hearings and find lawyers. She connected families with resources, wheelchair repairs, accessible housing, childcare support, job placement. Ryan helped however he could. He managed the website, handled logistics, showed up at events to provide whatever was needed. Tyler and Sophia volunteered at fundraisers, enthusiastic and proud of what Marisol was building. 1 year later, Breaking Barriers had helped 15 families reunite. 15 kids back with their parents. 15 victories that looked like Marisol and Sophia's. At the 1-year anniversary celebration, a father stood up to speak. His voice shook with emotion. "A year ago, I lost my daughter because I lost my job and couldn't afford rent. The state said I was neglectful because I was homeless. Marisol found me at a shelter. She helped me get back on my feet, helped me navigate the system, stood beside me in court. And last month, my daughter came home. Because of Marisol. Because she refused to let another family suffer what she suffered." The room erupted in applause. Marisol stood to accept it, tears streaming down her face. Ryan watched from the side, his own eyes wet, thinking about how far she'd come. From a parking lot to a podium, from fighting for her own daughter to fighting for everyone's daughters. 2 years after that first meeting, on a cold evening in December, Ryan and Marisol sat in her living room while the kids watched a movie. Sophia was 9 now, confident and bright. Tyler was 11, gangly and growing too fast. They'd long since stopped thinking of each other as friends and simply accepted that they were siblings in everything but blood. "I've been thinking about that night," Marisol said. "The parking lot, Christmas Eve, the broken wheelchair." "What about it?" "About how desperate I was. How certain I was that I'd lost everything. How close I came to giving up." "But you didn't." "No, because you stopped. Because one person decided I was worth seeing, worth helping, and that changed everything." She turned to look at him. "Sometimes I think about all the people who drove past that night, all the ones who saw me and kept going, and I wonder if they ever think about it, if they ever wonder what happened to the woman in the parking lot." "Probably not. Most people don't." "But you did. You stopped. You saw me. You changed my life." She reached over and took his hand. "You gave me back my daughter. You gave me hope. You gave me a family. How do I ever repay that?" "You already have. Every family you help reunite, every parent you give hope to, every time you turn your pain into purpose. That's repayment enough." "Is it?" "It's everything." They sat in comfortable silence, hands still clasped, watching their children laugh at the movie. Outside, snow was starting to fall, big fat flakes like the ones that had fallen that first night. "Ryan?" Marisol's voice was soft. "Do you ever regret it? Stopping that night? Everything that came after?" He thought about it, really thought about it, about the past 3 years, the challenges and the chaos, the late-night phone calls and the early morning emergencies, the court dates and the caseworker visits, the fear and the uncertainty. Then he thought about Sophia's laugh, about Tyler's joy at having a sister, about Marisol's transformation from broken to powerful, about the 15 families reunited, about the promise he'd made to Sarah and how keeping it had saved him. "Not for a second," he said. "Not even for a second." "Good, because I don't regret it either. Any of it. Even the hard parts? Especially the hard parts. They made us who we are. They brought us here, to this moment, this family, this life." 5 years after that night in the parking lot, Breaking Barriers had helped over 100 families reunite. Marisol had been featured in news articles and podcasts. She'd testified before state legislators about reforming the foster care system. She'd become a voice for families who'd been voiceless too long. Ryan was there for all of it, supporting, encouraging, celebrating every victory and helping process every setback. Their friendship had deepened into something that defied easy categorization. Not romantic, not quite familial, something entirely their own. A bond forged in crisis and strengthened through years of showing up for each other. Tyler was 14 now, talking about high school and college, and wanting to be a social worker when he grew up. Because of Marisol, he'd say. "She showed me what it means to fight for people who need help." Sophia was 12, confident and compassionate, volunteering at the rec center and talking about being a lawyer someday. So I can help families like ours, she'd explain, so nobody else has to go through what Mama went through. On the 5-year anniversary of that night, they all went back to the parking lot where it had started. The bakery was under new ownership now. The dumpster was gone. But the space was the same. Right here, Marisol said, pointing. This is where I was, where I'd hit bottom, where I thought my life was over. This is where it started, Ryan corrected, where everything changed. Sophia looked around the empty lot. It doesn't look special. It is, though, Tyler said. This is where Dad became the person Mom wanted him to be, where he learned to stop and see people who needed help. And where I learned that asking for help isn't weakness, Marisol added, that letting people in isn't giving up control. It's finding strength you didn't know you had. They stood there for a moment, the 4 of them, in the cold December evening. Snow was falling again, just like it had that first night. The streetlight flickered overhead, casting yellow light across the asphalt. Should we make this a tradition? Sophia asked. Come here every year and remember? I think that's a perfect idea, Marisol said. To remember where we came from, how far we've come, how we found each other. To remember that stopping changes lives, Ryan added. That one choice to see someone can ripple outward in ways you never imagine. They went back to Marisol's apartment, bigger now, a proper 2-bedroom in a better neighborhood, and had dinner together like they did most nights. The conversation flowed easily. Tyler talked about his basketball game. Sophia showed off her latest art project. Marisol shared news about Breaking Barrier's expansion plans. Ryan just listened and laughed and marveled at the life they'd built. Later that night, after the kids were in bed and it was just the 2 of them cleaning up dishes, Marisol suddenly started crying. What's wrong? Ryan asked, alarmed. Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. That's what I'm crying about. She wiped her eyes. 5 years ago, I was digging through trash. I'd lost my daughter, lost my home, lost hope. And tonight, I'm standing in my kitchen, with my daughter asleep in her bedroom, talking about expansion plans for a nonprofit that's helped 100 families. How is this my life? Because you fought for it. You never gave up. Because you helped me fight. Because you saw worth in me when I couldn't see it in myself. Because you kept showing up. She set down the dish she was washing and turned to face him. I need you to know something. You saved my life. Not just that night in the parking lot. Every day since. Every time I doubted myself and you reminded me I was capable. Every time the system pushed back and you stood beside me. Every time I thought about giving up and you gave me a reason to keep going. You saved my life in 1,000 small ways. Ryan felt his throat tighten. You saved mine too. After Sarah died, I was just going through the motions, existing but not living. You showed me what it meant to really be in the world again, to connect, to care, to fight for things that matter. So we're even. We're family. That's what we are. Yeah, we are. They finished the dishes in comfortable silence. Then Marisol said, I've been thinking about writing a book about everything that happened. Not just my story, but all the families Breaking Barriers has helped. Show people what's wrong with the system and how we can fix it. You should. People need to hear these stories. Would you help? You're part of this story too. However you need me, always. The book took 2 years to write and became a regional bestseller. Marisol did interviews and speaking tours. She met with lawmakers and advocates and families fighting their own battles. She became a force for change, using her voice to push for reform, to demand better for families caught in an impossible system. And through it all, Ryan was there. Not in the spotlight, he didn't want that, but in the background, steady and supportive, helping in practical ways. Managing logistics, caring for Sophia when Marisol traveled, being the person she could call at 2 a.m. when she was overwhelmed and needed someone to listen. Their friendship became the foundation everything else was built on. Not romantic love, though people often assumed it was. Something deeper, something rarer. Chosen family in its purest form. 2 people who'd found each other in the darkest moment and decided to build a life together. Not as partners in the traditional sense, but as partners in purpose, in parenting, in making the world a little bit better. 10 years after that night in the parking lot, Marisol stood at a podium in the state capitol. She was testifying in favor of legislation that would reform how the foster care system handled cases involving poverty and disability. Beside her sat 3 other parents who'd fought similar battles. Behind her in the gallery sat Ryan and the kids. Tyler was 19 now, home from college for the weekend. Sophia was 17, preparing for her own college applications. 10 years ago, Marisol said, her voice strong and clear, I lost my daughter, not because I was a bad mother, but because I was poor and disabled. The system saw my circumstances as evidence of neglect, rather than as challenges I needed help overcoming. I spent 8 months fighting to prove I deserved to be my daughter's mother. 8 months of supervised visits and canceled appointments and being treated like a problem instead of a person. She paused, making eye contact with the legislators. I was lucky. I found help. A friend who stood beside me. A community that rallied around us, resources that helped me rebuild. But not everyone is that lucky. Hundreds of families are torn apart every year because poverty is treated as a crime, because disability is seen as inability, because the system is designed to separate rather than support. This legislation won't fix everything, but it's a start. It requires the state to provide resources before removing children. It mandates accessible services for parents with disabilities. It creates oversight to prevent the kind of systematic bias I experienced. It puts families first. She looked back at the gallery, at Ryan and Tyler and Sophia, at the families she'd helped over the years who'd come to support this moment. 10 years ago, someone stopped to help me when I had nothing. That one act of compassion changed my life and my daughter's life. This legislation is about institutionalizing that compassion, making it policy rather than chance, ensuring that every family gets the support they need to stay together. The legislation passed. Not unanimously, change never comes easy, but it passed, and Marisol stood on the Capitol steps afterward, surrounded by families she'd helped, by advocates she'd worked with, by legislators who'd been moved by her testimony. Ryan watched from the edge of the crowd, Tyler and Sophia beside him. His son had become a social work major, inspired by Marisol's example. His daughter, because Sophia had become that in every way that mattered, wanted to study law and policy, to keep fighting the fights Marisol had started. Dad, Tyler said quietly, do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't stopped that night? Ryan thought about it, about all the dominoes that wouldn't have fallen, about Marisol and Sophia separated forever, about the 100 families breaking barriers had helped, about this legislation that would protect thousands more, about his own life, empty and closed off, going through motions without meaning. I try not to, he said honestly, because the alternative is too sad to contemplate. I'm glad you stopped. Me too, buddy. Me too. That evening, they all went back to Marisol's apartment for dinner. It had become their tradition. Every major victory, every important milestone, they celebrated together over a home-cooked meal. Tonight it was Marisol's enchiladas, Sophia's homemade salsa, Tyler's contribution of store-bought cookies, because cooking was not his talent. Over dinner, they talked about the legislation, about what it would mean for families going forward, about how much work there was still to do. But mostly they just enjoyed being together. The family they'd chosen, the life they'd built from the wreckage of that cold night 10 years ago. After dinner, while the kids were doing dishes, Ryan and Marisol stepped out onto the small balcony, the city stretched out before them, lights twinkling in the darkness. Thank you, Marisol said, for today, for being there, for the past 10 years. You don't have to thank me. I know, but I want to. I want you to know how much it's meant, having you in my corner, never having to doubt that you'd be there. Where else would I be? She smiled. Nowhere. I know that now. But 10 years ago, I didn't know people like you existed. People who stopped, who saw, who helped without expecting anything in return. I got plenty in return. A best friend. Another kid to worry about. A purpose that extends beyond just surviving. He looked at her. You gave me my life back too, Marisol. Don't ever forget that. They stood in comfortable silence, shoulder to shoulder, watching the city lights. From inside came the sound of the kids laughing about something, the sound of family. Home. What do you think happens next? Marisol asked. The legislation will take time to implement. Breaking barriers keeps growing. The kids are getting older, thinking about their own futures. What's next for us? Ryan thought about it. More of this, I hope. More dinners and celebrations and being there for each other. More fighting for families who need help. More watching our kids grow into amazing adults. More life, real life, the kind Sarah wanted for me, the kind you deserve. The kind we both deserve. Yeah, the kind we both deserve. Inside, Sophia called for them. Come on! Tyler's trying to teach me to juggle, and it's a disaster. They went back in, laughing, joining the chaos. And as Ryan watched Marisol help Sophia with the juggling while Tyler narrated the whole thing with enthusiastic commentary, he thought about stopping, about how one choice had changed everything. He thought about the promise he'd made to Sarah, to stay in the world, to keep seeing people, to not close himself off. He thought he'd broken that promise, thought 3 years of just surviving meant he'd failed her. But he hadn't failed. He just needed to learn what keeping that promise really meant. That it wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic changes. It was about stopping, seeing, helping, one person at a time, one cold night at a time, one broken wheelchair at a time. It was about choosing to be in the world even when it was hard, even when it was scary, even when it would have been easier to drive on. And it was about understanding that saving someone else's life often meant saving your own in the process. 15 years after that night, Ryan Cole stood in a different parking lot on Christmas Eve. He was older now, his hair graying at the temples, his face lined with years of worry and joy and everything in between. He'd just finished his shift. He'd moved into management at work, inspired by Marisol's example to help people facing housing instability. It was late. He was tired. He wanted to get home to the small Christmas gathering they'd planned, just him and Tyler, Marisol and Sophia, maybe a few friends from Breaking Barriers. Simple. Quiet. Perfect. Then he saw someone digging through a dumpster behind a closed restaurant. Ryan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. For a moment, just a moment, he thought about driving on. It was late. He was tired. Someone else would help. But then he thought about Marisol, about that night 15 years ago, about the promise he'd made and the life it had given him. He pulled over, got out of his car, walked toward the person at the dumpster. "Hey," he called out. "You okay? Need some help?" The person turned, a young man, maybe early 20s, thin and scared and desperate. "I'm not stealing," the man said defensively. Ryan smiled. "I didn't think you were. But it's cold out here, and I'm thinking you might need help. I'm Ryan. What's your name?" The young man stared at him, suspicious and hopeful in equal measure. "Marcus. My name's Marcus." "Well, Marcus, I know a place that helps people in tough situations. They're closed tonight for the holiday, but they open tomorrow. Can I give you their number? Maybe buy you a meal?" "Why would you do that?" "Because someone did it for me once. Well, for someone I love. And it changed everything." Ryan pulled out his phone. "Come on, let's get you somewhere warm." As they walked to his car, Ryan thought about Marisol, about how proud she'd be, about how she'd taught him that stopping wasn't just something you did once. It was something you kept doing, over and over, for as long as you were alive and able to see people who needed help. He'd call her later, tell her about Marcus. She'd know what to do. She always did. Breaking Barriers had resources, connections, hope. For now, he'd just do what someone had done for Marisol 15 years ago. He'd stop. He'd see. He'd help. Because that's what it meant to be in the world. To keep the promises that mattered. To save lives, including your own. One stopped car at a time. And as snow began to fall on another Christmas Eve, Ryan Cole smiled and helped another stranger into his car, knowing that somewhere, somehow, Sarah was smiling too. The circle was complete. The promise was kept. The life was lived. And it had all started because one man chose to stop.